Chapter 26. Before the bell rang, the classroom was already filled with excited little wizards. The reason is simple: because of Thomas's warm-up yesterday, the freshmen are full of enthusiasm for today's spells class. Spells, as the foundation of all wizards, all first-year wizards are very interested in them, except Ronald and Malfoy of course. Because the blow yesterday was too great, the two are still in a daze. Professor Flitwick stood on the podium, looked at the full classroom of students, and nodded with great satisfaction. Classmates, I think everyone has already seen the feathers on their desks. Yes, Professor. Very good, then what we are going to learn today is the spell that all wizards must be aware of, the levitation spell. And your goal is to make the feather in front of you float successfully. Gently wave your wands and repeat after me. Wingardium Leviosa. After hearing what Professor Philipper said, everyone started practicing immediately, but soon a cry of surprise was heard. A nice levitation spell. Applause to Mr. Black. 10 points for Slytherin. Professor Flitwick's voice quickly attracted the attention of many young wizards, and in front of Thomas, the soft feather was already floating in the air. Thank you for the compliment, Professor. Oh, kid, you don't have to be modest. You deserve this. Professor Flitwick looked at Thomas in front of him with satisfaction and said that he was serious, studious, humble, and polite. If Thomas was not so young, he really wanted to invite this child to join the duel club immediately. The episode ended quickly. After Thomas set a good example, many students successfully cast this spell. Of course, Malfoy and Harry are among them. After all, their talents are not bad. But there was one exception, and that was Ronald. He kept waving his wand quickly with both hands, but no matter how hard he tried, the feathers in front of him just couldn't fly. Hermione and Harry, who were watching, were also very anxious. No, that's not it, Ronald, your gesture is wrong. Yes, Ronald, your pronunciation is also a bit off. The language of instruction from Hermione and Harry sounded more like an invisible humiliation to Ronald's ears. Especially when he looked up and saw Malfoy's arrogant face and Thomas with a smile beside him, an inexplicable anger instantly surged in his heart. Oh, yes, I am just stupid. Harry and Hermione saw Ronald's angry expression and hurriedly tried to comfort him. Ronald, you know that's not what we meant. Yes, Ronald, we are friends. Ronald did not feel any comfort despite the consolation from his two good friends, but the anger in his heart became even stronger. He stood up suddenly, slammed the table hard, and yelled loudly. Shut up, I don't need your concern, a nerd, a dead sissy, a traitor to Gryffindor, what are you showing off? I am free to do whatever I want, and I don't need you to tell me what to do. Ronald, you. Harry's eyes were slightly red and his tone was a little choked. When he first put on the uniform, he was indeed a little embarrassed, but he could not deny that he really enjoyed this atmosphere. But now Ronald's words were like a cold knife stabbing straight into his chest. Ronald, you've gone too far. You must apologize to Harley. Hermione was like a lioness protecting her cubs. She protected Harry behind her and spoke in dissatisfaction. Everyone in the classroom has turned their attention to Ronald. Many people have started whispering. Although the voices are small, one can still understand what they mean from the intermittent whispers. Most of them were saying that Ronald was not a gentleman. How could Ronald tolerate this? Just when he was about to launch a second attack, a stern rebuke sounded. 5 points will be deducted from Gryffindor for disrupting order and insulting classmates. I don't accept it, obviously. Before Ronald could finish his rebuttal, he looked directly into Professor Flitwick's eyes. His short stature exuded a powerful aura that made it impossible for him to continue his rebuttal. At this point, the farce came to an end. As the bell rang for the end of Get Out of Class, Ronald did not follow the group, but left the classroom alone. Harry saw Ronald leaving and was about to run after him, but his hand was suddenly grabbed by someone, and the person holding his hand was Thomas. Harry, let Ronald be alone and quiet. He is very angry right now. If you and Hermione go there now, it will not improve the situation. On the contrary, it may backfire. Thank you, Thomas. After hearing what Thomas said, Harry felt much better. You're welcome, Harley. Aren't we friends? By the way, I heard what Ronald said in class today. You don't have to worry too much about it. If you're not used to it, I can help you cut your hair short. Thomas said with concern. Originally, this plan was just to make fun of Snape, but now Harry had to bear the identity of a transvestite. He felt a little guilty. But the next second, what Harry said made Thomas stand there in a daze. No. No thanks, thank you, Thomas, I think I'm fine the way I am now. After Harry said this, her face instantly turned red. Although her voice was very low and her words were intermittent, Thomas still heard the meaning clearly. Thomas was going to speak up to persuade her again, but then he changed his mind and realized that he had already come to the magical world, and gender was just a matter of a bottle of potion. Children have different ideas every day. Maybe in a few days, Harry will change his mind. Thinking of this, Thomas reached out and patted Harry on the shoulder and spoke. Don't worry about other people's opinions or words, Harley. I will always support you. Thank you, Thomas. You're welcome. Aren't we friends? Just when the two were chatting happily, a cold voice suddenly sounded. Mr. Black, if your brain is not as stupid as the troll, then you should remember your work in the afternoon. Of course, Dean Snape. Thomas sighed, turned around and smiled. Well, let's go. You still have a lot of work to do in the afternoon. As for you, Harley. The sun is shining outside the castle today. You can go out and relax with Miss Granger. Thomas, who was standing by, couldn't help but roll his eyes when he heard this. No, is the double standard so obvious? Harley just went out to bask in the sun and relax, but I have to be a free child laborer. If there was no such law in the wizarding world, he would definitely sue. Snape. Chapter 27. At dusk, Thomas, in a trance, swayed his tired body and slowly came to the cafeteria. For some unknown reason, the power of Snape's venom increased greatly, and the 2-hour potion processing work today was ridiculously extended to the whole afternoon. This wave of operations made Thomas exhausted both physically and mentally, but fortunately, he also learned the knowledge of potions deeply. Cousin, are you okay? What do you say? How about I help you apply to Dean Snape tomorrow so that you can study with me? Thomas rolled his eyes and said. No. No thanks, cousin, I'll just study on my own. As Malfoy spoke, he tactfully poured a glass of pumpkin juice and handed it to Thomas. Thomas took the pumpkin juice handed to him by Malfoy and drank it in one gulp. He instantly felt that most of his fatigue had disappeared. Daphne was very considerate and massaged Thomas's tired shoulders. Just when Thomas was about to enjoy himself, Teacher Quirrell suddenly rushed in a panic. Oh no, giant, troll, there's a giant. As soon as he finished speaking, Quirrell suddenly fell to the ground with a thud and fainted. The next second, the entire cafeteria was instantly boiling with excitement, although almost no one present looked down on the troll. In everyone's eyes the troll had always been synonymous with stupidity. But looking down on it and actually encountering it are two different things. Although the troll has a low IQ, its skin and flesh are extremely thick, and ordinary magic cannot penetrate the troll's skin and flesh. If an ordinary little wizard encounters a troll, there is only one outcome, and that is death. Under normal circumstances, it would take 2 or 3 adult wizards to work together to kill a creature like a troll. Thomas was not too nervous about this and continued to eat the food in front of him slowly. Hogwarts is a top magic school, and it is home to the most powerful White Lord Dumbledore of this century. A mere troll cannot enter without Dumbledore's permission. To be honest, the way Harry and his 2 companions subdued the troll in the original book was simply child's play. The only definite conclusion Thomas could draw was that Dumbledore was just building up momentum for the savior. Soon, Dumbledore issued an order requiring the heads of each level to lead the students back to the dormitory. Without any orders, the Slytherin people gathered around Thomas tacitly. This scene made many prefects from the other 3 colleges very envious, and Thomas, the main character, put down his bowl and chopsticks and burped comfortably. However, the next second, Thomas lost his composure, because 2 red figures had mixed into the huge Slytherin team. He could understand Harry being here, but why was Hermione here too? So who was outwitting the troll now? Thomas, you must help us. Ronald is still on the 3rd floor. Harley said anxiously. Hermione beside her also echoed. Although Thomas didn't want to get involved in this mess, things had come to this point. After all, it was because of him that the normal direction of the plot was interrupted, and Harry and Hermione took the initiative to ask him for help. There were so many Slytherins around, and if he refused, his previous reputation and prestige might be damaged. Finally, Thomas agreed to their request. After handing over the power to the former Slytherin prefect, he followed Hermione and Harry, left the team, and ran to the third floor. At the same time, Ronald wiped the tears from his face. After crying in the toilet for the whole afternoon, he now felt extremely hungry and tired. After all, crying is also a physical activity. Just as he was about to get up and go to the restaurant to eat, the ground suddenly began to shake. Boom! 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 Ronald curiously poked his head out of the door and happened to meet the eyes of the huge figure. It was a moment of love. Ah! Why, damn, why is there a troll in Hogwarts? Ronald screamed and ran to the toilet, while the troll followed closely with a simple smile, holding a huge stick. He ran away, it chased him, he couldn't escape even if he had wings. Ronald hid in a single room and quickly locked the toilet door. Unfortunately, this seemingly safe gate was of no use to the troll. He just swung the big stick in his hand, and the originally solid wooden door shattered in an instant. Thomas and others who had shouted to the third floor also heard Ronald's heart-wrenching screams at this moment. Oh no, it's Ronald. He must have met a giant monster. The three of them quickened their pace and ran quickly towards the men's restroom. Just then I saw the troll had grabbed Ronald and was about to kill him. When Thomas saw this scene, he no longer cared about anything else and directly pulled out his wand and pointed it at the troll. Sectum Sempra. The sharp sword is invisible. Countless invisible sharp blades instantly cut into the giant monster's body, leaving countless cuts. The troll's hard skin, which was invulnerable to swords and guns, was as fragile as thin paper in front of this black magic. This effect can be achieved not only because of the power of this spell, but more because of the proficiency and magic level of Thomas. That's right. Just this morning, Thomas had completed the task approved by Slytherin, and his magic level had reached level 4, which was already at the standard of an ordinary auror. Countless green blood flowed out of the giant monster's body, and the most terrifying part of this spell had just begun. The power of Shenfeng Wuying is not only due to its sharpness, but more to its subsequent effects. Once this spell is cast into the body, it cannot be healed or regenerated by any method except counterspell. Instead, it will continue to tear the body apart until it turns the target into a pool of minced meat. The troll collapsed on the ground in pain and rolled around, and Ronald took the opportunity to run out. Are you okay, Ronald? Are you hurt anywhere? Ronald looked at the anxious expressions of Harry and Hermione in front of him, and a feeling of guilt instantly surged in his heart. He had treated them so well, yet in the end, they were the ones who came to save him. Thank you, Harry, Hermione. I was wrong before. I shouldn't have said that to you. It's okay, Ronald, aren't we friends? Yes, Ronald, friends should help each other, right? The three of them quickly put aside their past grudges and hugged each other once again, as if nothing had happened. Thomas, I really would thank you. Chapter 28. Oh my goodness, kids, you better explain what's going on. A cry of surprise was heard, and the owner of the voice was Professor McGonagall, followed by several professors who were searching for the troll. This included Snape. Harley. Why are you here too? Professor, Just as Harry was about to explain something, several bottles of potions appeared in his hands. This is a recovery potion that can heal injuries and restore magic power. This is a scar removal potion that can heal scars. The effects and names of bottles of potions kept coming out of the old bat's mouth like a list of dishes. Ronald and Hermione, who were watching on the side, were both stunned. After all, it was the work of a master of potions, and each bottle was worth a lot of money. Professor McGonagall looked at this scene, sighed helplessly, and didn't say much, but walked to Thomas's side. Child, this giant monster. I solved it, Professor McGonagall. Thomas agreed. He had nothing to hide. After all, he had demonstrated his strength in front of the whole school yesterday, which was comparable to Oro. It's normal to deal with a giant monster. But you are still too reckless. Professor McGonagall said with concern, and took out a bottle of potion and handed it to Thomas. Dealing with the giant monster is not an easy task. I'm sure you've consumed a lot of mana. This bottle is a recovery potion. Professor Snape has already explained its specific effects. Thank you, Professor McGonagall. Thomas nodded, then picked up the potion and drank it in one gulp. He could feel that the magic power that was originally consumed by casting the spell was recovering quickly. Ronald and Hermione just watched this scene quietly, feeling extremely strange. The deans of both sides were caring for each other's students. This strange feeling made the two of them feel indescribably weird. After a brief discussion, the topic returned to the main topic. So, why are you here? Professor McGonagall looked at the four people and asked. After all, Ronald didn't have the courage like Hermione. He was still a child after all, and he was hesitant because he was afraid of punishment. At this time, Thomas spoke. It's like this, Professor McGonagall, I heard that there was a giant monster in the castle, and I just wanted to test my strength, so. So, you brought Harry here to take risks. What gave you the confidence? Your stupid head, or that spell you learned secretly. Snape said in a stern tone. Professor McGonagall on the side couldn't help but frown. In her opinion, despite this, Thomas's performance and courage were still worthy of praise. Severus, I think you are going too far. Thomas may be just a child, but he dared to face the troll. Doesn't this show his courage? Although Thomas acted recklessly this time, it does not erase his achievements. For this, Slytherin will receive 20 extra points. As for Miss Granger, Mr. Weasley, and Mr. Potter, Miss, your courage in facing danger alongside your companions also earns you 5 points each. As soon as Professor McGonagall finished speaking, the team of three cheered loudly. Snape on the side pulled the corner of his mouth awkwardly. Courage? That kind of thing only stupid lions have is not suitable for Slytherin. But although he did not agree with this statement, he surprisingly did not refute it. If we were to say who Snape respected the most in Hogwarts, besides Dumbledore, it would only be Professor McGonagall, who dedicated his entire life to Hogwarts. Humph, what's the matter, Mr. Black? Haven't you had enough of the limelight? Go back to the Slytherin dormitory now, or you want to join Gryffindor. Of course not, Dean Snape. I'll be back right away. Thomas bowed respectfully to the professors present, and then walked quickly towards the Slytherin dormitory. As soon as I returned to the dormitory, Malfoy came over immediately. Cousin, what happened? Did you see the troll just now? Goyle and Crabbe also cast curious glances. Thomas nodded in response and did not deny it. I saw it, and I solved it myself. Malfoy jumped up when he heard the news. Oh, Merlin's pink triangle woolen underpants, cousin, you really saw the troll and killed it with your own hands. Thomas looked at the excited Malfoy, smiled and nodded, then he ignored the three excited people and returned to his bed. Because just now, the system prompted that the egg was about to hatch. Late at night, in the request-granting house, Thomas took out the golden egg from the system backpack and placed it on the table. Accompanied by a slight breaking sound, slowly the entire egg was covered with golden cracks. A small golden snake slowly emerged from the eggshell. Its eyes were emerald green and the sides of its head were slightly raised, like a crown. There are two small wings on both sides of the body. Little wings, wait. How come a basilisk has little wings? Ding dong, host, don't be surprised. The basilisk produced by this system is a mutant. Some changes are normal. When Thomas heard the system's voice, he was stunned at first, but then he reacted. After all, there is a system, and I am still here. If I care about these common sense, it will make me look obsessed. While Thomas was thinking, the little snake monster had already finished eating its eggshell and slowly crawled towards Thomas. Thomas also curiously stretched out his hand towards the basilisk. The little basilisk looked at Thomas's outstretched hand, then rubbed its head obediently in his hand, making a hissing sound from its mouth, looking very comfortable. Damn it, how could I forget about this? Thomas seemed to remember something and quickly closed his eyes. In the original book, the basilisk's eyes had the power of death. As long as you looked into its eyes, you would die. Even if it was an indirect look, your body would be quickly petrified. Master, why are you closing your eyes? A childish voice sounded in Thomas's ears. Thomas's innate skill was Parseltongue, so it was normal for him to understand the language of the basilisk. Your talent. Thomas's answer was concise. After all, this matter had to be made clear now. He didn't want to wake up and see 3 stone statues around him. So that's how it is. Master, don't worry, I have already turned off my petrification ability. Deactivate the petrification ability? Your ability can be controlled by yourself. Thomas exclaimed. Yes, Master. The basilisk replied weakly. Chapter 29. The little snake monster felt the burning gaze of its owner and suddenly its whole body froze. For some reason, it felt a little regretful for telling its owner about this. Thomas didn't think much about it but called up the Basilisk's panel. Name, Nun race, Basilisk variant, Quetzalcoatl, talents, petrification, fire, flight, self-controlled body shape owner, Thomas Blake gender, female stage, childhood comment, you deserve this divine beast cub. By the way, you don't have a name yet, right? Name. That's right. Every living creature has its own name. Kukulkan, what do you think of this name? After thinking for a moment, Thomas said the name, Kukulkan, which was taken from the name of the feathered serpent god in Mayan mythology. Kukulku, I like this name. It's Kukulkan. Thomas corrected. Cuckoo. The little basilisk said stubbornly, and Thomas could only acquiesce to it for the time being. The next morning, Thomas received a summons from Snape and came to the office. Dean Snape, what do you want to talk to me about? Thomas said respectfully, his main point was to play dumb, after all, he used the old bat's signature magic yesterday. Others might think that the old bat taught Thomas privately, but the old bat knew for sure that he did not teach Thomas any magic. There was no way to avoid what was coming, so Thomas just started. Quidditch is about to begin. The winner this year must be Slytherin, do you understand? Snape said in a calm tone. Of course, the honor belongs to Slytherin. Thomas shouted a slogan and then shut up. Quidditch is an activity that is too dangerous, so the teams are usually made up of students in the 4th grade or above. This kind of thing is still too far-fetched for him as he is in the lower grades and is not within his consideration. But the next second, he was startled by Snape's words. Very good, Mr. Black, it seems that you also care about the honor of the college. So, I made a special application for you. From today on, you are a member of the Slytherin Quidditch team. Dean Snape, I thank you for your generosity, but you know, I am just a first year. A freshman, hey. Snape said playfully. First years can kill trolls, and first years integrate Slytherin as soon as they arrive at the academy. Mr. Black, what you do is better than most graduates. Thank you for the compliment, but... No, but, Mr. Black, you don't have to come to the office in the afternoons during this period. I need to see that Slytherin Quidditch can get a good result this year. After Snape said this, he directly issued an expulsion order to Thomas. So, after Thomas returned to the Slytherin common room, the whole Slytherin became excited again. Just this morning, there were countless students visiting Thomas. The resounding title of a first-year student killing a troll made many Slytherin students excited. This is the essence of Slytherin, the pursuit of glory and power. As the heir of one of the 28 pure-blood saints, Thomas showed such amazing power in his first year of school. Everyone had no doubt that after Thomas graduated, the magic world would surely produce another Demon King. As for whether it is the White Lord or the Dark Lord, that is not something that everyone is worried about. All they have to do is to build a solid basic relationship before the prince ascends the throne, so that when the crown is taken, they will all be the new king's loyal subjects. Thomas is not opposed to this situation. It is a good opportunity for him to complete the tasks provided by the system and expand his recognition. The recognition displayed by the system now not only includes Slytherin, but also the other 3 major colleges. Strong strength will always be recognized, right? No matter whether this recognition is fear or admiration. Oh my god, my cousin has a delivery for you. Thomas, who had just finished receiving the visitors, was planning to take a break when the door was suddenly opened. Then, Malfoy was seen commanding Goyle and Crabbe, holding a dozen Nimbus 2000s in their hands. It seems that Creacker's work speed is really good. Very well, Draco, take these things and come with me. Where to? Cousin? Malfoy asked doubtfully. The Slytherin Quidditch Lounge. Where are you going? Oh, Merlin's Triangle Bra, cousin, you mean, you joined the Slytherin Quidditch team? Yes. Thomas said calmly. Take these deliveries. Malfoy seemed to have thought of something and quickly kicked it away. Nimbus 2000. Wait, can't all of these be Nimbus 2000s? Malfoy said excitedly, and then with Thomas's tacit consent, he opened a small gap one by one. Then he became even more restless. Malfoy has always had a special liking for Quidditch and really wants a Nimbus 2000 of his own, but is restricted by the rules of Hogwarts. I can only wait until the 2nd grade. You can pick one if you like, Draco. Really? Cousin? Malfoy said excitedly. Did I ever lie to you? Goyle and Crabbe can each take 1, 2. The next second, Goyle and Crabbe, who were originally working as handymen, were so excited that they flew up on the spot after hearing Thomas's words. Thomas just smiled and shook his head. With 3 years of experience in running a mafia family, he knew very well how to make his subordinates convinced. It is not enough to just paint a rosy picture. Sometimes material needs are much more important than spiritual needs. In the Slytherin Quidditch common room, Marcus was discussing tactics with his teammates, such as where to hit the opponent more painfully and how to outflank the opponent to better eliminate the opponent. Yes, you read it right, it is about eliminating the opponent. Quidditch is an extremely violent sport. In addition to scores, it is also very normal to use dirty tricks or sneak attacks. As long as they can win, the Slytherin team members don't mind using all kinds of extreme methods. This is also the reason why Quidditch players from the other 3 houses look down on Slytherin. There was a bang, and the door to the Slytherin Quidditch common room opened. Just as Marcus was about to start cursing, he saw a smiling figure appear at the door with 3 people. The words that were about to come out were swallowed back in an instant. I hope I didn't interrupt your discussion. Chapter 30. No, you came at the right time, Marcus said in a flattering tone. The rest of the people in the lounge also looked excited. The main reason for this scene was not only Thomas's powerful strength, but more from Malfoy's propaganda. That's right, it was Malfoy's propaganda. Just last night, after Malfoy learned that Thomas had solved the troll, he edited a script overnight. In the story, Thomas is the incarnation of Merlin, and the evil troll is the embodiment of sin. Just when the 3 stupid Gryffindors were at a loss, Thomas Merlin Blake appeared with thunder, and the next moment a whistling sound was heard. Thomas, holding the magic wand, cast a dazzling spell with such power that it could destroy the world. Although the troll tried its best to resist, it finally fell at Thomas's feet. The remaining 3 Gryffindors cried with joy and knelt down to swear allegiance to Thomas. As for why Malfoy brags about Thomas so much? Nonsense, the more powerful Thomas, the cousin, the more arrogant Malfoy can be in Hogwarts. Malfoy doesn't care. When outsiders see him, they say he is Thomas's cousin. Or rather, he prefers this feeling. He is able to judge the situation, and this is the reason why the Malfoy family has lasted for so long. This story might be a little childish for adult wizards, but it is just right for the current students at Hogwarts. Especially after Professor McGonagall praised Thomas during breakfast, it further proved the authenticity of Malfoy's story. Yes, this story may be a little bit exaggerated, but you can't deny its truth. Professor McGonagall praised Thomas in public, so who would question the authenticity of this story? Of course, some people are happy while others are angry. As Thomas Black is the uncrowned king of Slytherin today, the more famous Thomas is, the more glorious it will be for Slytherin. The 3 stupid Gryffindors in Malfoy's story caused dissatisfaction among many little lions. But no one dared to cause trouble for Malfoy. A man's reputation is like the shadow of a tree. After this incident, Thomas has completely made a name for himself. Thomas looked at the excited crowd, smiled slightly, then walked directly to the main seat in the lounge and sat down confidently. Although Marcus was somewhat dissatisfied, he did not show it. He did not want to experience the petrification curse a second time. Thomas glanced at the people in front of him, then spoke in a calm tone. Dean Snape has arranged for me to join our house's Quidditch team. From today on, I will be the captain of the Slytherin Quidditch team. Who is for, who is against? For a moment, everyone present couldn't help but look a little embarrassed, only Malfoy and his 2 companions were clapping excitedly. After hearing what Thomas said, everyone on the Slytherin Quidditch team felt more or less dissatisfied. They didn't deny that Thomas was very strong and talented, but that was another matter than Quidditch. As members of the Slytherin Quidditch team, although their playing methods are a bit shameful, it is undeniable that they love this sport. Finally, a Slytherin Quidditch player took the lead and stood up, ready to risk Thomas's anger and refute the proposal. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot, these are the little gifts I brought you for our first meeting. After Thomas finished speaking, Malfoy and the other 2 distributed the Nimbus 2000s in their hands to everyone, including Marcus. For a moment, when the Slytherins saw the Nimbus 2000 in their hands, they all stood there in a daze. This feeling was no less than that of a racing driver who got a top-level racing car of his own. Thomas smiled and looked at the team member who had just stepped forward and asked. By the way, what did you want to say just now? I will be unconditionally loyal to Captain Black. The team member said this in a firm tone, and then voices of agreement continued to ring out in the Slytherin Quidditch lounge. At this moment, Marcus knew that he could no longer keep his position as captain. Thomas looked at the excited people in front of him and nodded with satisfaction. The morale of the army was still there. Following Thomas's light cough, the originally noisy lounge suddenly became quiet. Very good, since everyone supports me to become the captain of the Quidditch team, I will naturally not let you down. As everyone knows, in 3 days, we will have a match with Gryffindor House. What I want to say is that I hope that in this game, I don't want to see the signature tactics of this court. Thomas's words made everyone present stunned. Everyone present was a member of Slytherin, and those who knew the so-called signature method, which was to use dirty tricks. This series of operations maintained the Slytherin Quidditch team's winning rate at least at 80%. Now that Thomas has banned it, everyone is somewhat dissatisfied. Thomas noticed every micro-expression of the crowd. Thomas immediately put away his previous kind expression and his tone instantly became serious. Why, is someone unhappy? Or you're not satisfied with my approach? As a dignified Slytherin Quidditch team, can't they defeat their opponents without resorting to dirty tricks? Or do you admit that you are just worse than others? Tell me your answers. Every word Thomas said was like a huge hammer hitting everyone's psychological defenses, and the aura of the superior was obvious. Finally, a team member with a red face stood up and said dissatisfiedly, Captain Black, even if you were the captain, I would not allow you to insult the Slytherin Quidditch team like this. Then one by one, the team members stood up and expressed their inner thoughts. Then they clenched their fists and stood quietly aside, waiting for Thomas's decision. Marcus, who was watching this scene, was stunned. What was going on? Are my teammates so brave? Very good, everyone has expressed their ideas. So, Marcus, what are your ideas? Thomas's words exploded in Marcus' ears like a thunderbolt. Humiliation, reluctance, anger, fear, all kinds of emotions surrounded Marcus' heart, and in the end he made a decision that he would not regret for the rest of his life. The Slytherin Quidditch team is as good as anyone. After Marcus said this, he collapsed to the ground, sweating all over. At this moment, he had only one thought in his mind, I'm done for, how dare I do this? Chapter 31. Marcus closed his eyes tightly, clenched his fists, and waited for Thomas's decision, although he now regretted his actions very much. But if time could go back, he would still choose his previous approach without hesitation. He, Marcus Flint, has no regrets. The entire Slytherin Quidditch common room was filled with a heavy atmosphere. The next second, a chuckle was heard. Everyone who had their heads down was very curious about whose general was so brave. Even Marcus, who was sitting on the ground, opened his eyes and looked over curiously. Oh, it's Thomas. That's okay. Thomas looked at the people who were bowing their heads with satisfaction. They dared to face the reality. This was exactly what he wanted, not team members suppressed by money and power. What's the difference between them and a group of puppets? I'm glad you spoke your mind. I also think that Slytherin is no weaker than any other Quidditch team in the house. Then given your own strength and talent, coupled with the Nimbus 2000 that crushes all the other schools, why do you think you can't win without relying on those other means? After hearing what Thomas said, everyone was stunned, and then began to reflect. Yes, why are we afraid of losing? Our strength is already stronger than those guys, and with a full team of Nimbus 2000s, we can definitely kill those broken brooms. When Dean Snape arranged for me to come here, he had already issued a death order. We must win the game in 3 days. We have to win too. We will trample Gryffindor under our feet with honor. Glory belongs to Slytherin. Thomas's words livened up the atmosphere of the crowd. The people present were relatively young, they were teenagers, and it was normal for them to be full of youthful energy. In addition, Gryffindor and Slytherin had always disliked each other for generations, and the atmosphere instantly reached its peak. Glory to Slytherin! Glory to Slytherin! When the show was over, Thomas specifically called Marcus to stay. Captain Black, what do you want to talk to me about? Thomas couldn't help but smile as he looked at Marcus, who was shy in front of him. Then he reached out and patted him on the shoulder and spoke. Don't be nervous. I'm not trying to cause you any trouble. I left you here alone because I want to learn some knowledge about Quidditch. Oh, so that's how it is. You want to know something about Quidditch? What? Dean Snape put you on the Quidditch team and you don't even know the basics of Quidditch. Oh, Merlin's lace briefs. Are you serious, Captain Black? Marcus only felt a gloom in front of his eyes at this moment. Originally in the lounge, he and his brothers were ambitious and ready to do a great job, but before it was over for long, the captain came to him to learn about Quidditch. How could this be possible? So, you think I'm kidding you? No, how could that be? In the end, Marcus had no choice but to take out the box containing 3 types of Quidditch balls from the lounge and took Thomas to an open space in the castle. Well, Captain Black, Quidditch is played by 7 players, each with a keeper, 3 chasers, 2 beaters, and a seeker. There are 2 rings on each side, which are the goals. If you hit the ball into the goal, you score a point. As Marcus spoke, he opened the box and took out a red ball about the size of a football. He began to introduce. This is the quaffle. If we hit the opponent's goal with it, we will get 10 points. This slightly smaller black ball is called a bludger. The purpose of the bludger is to disrupt the members of both teams. If you're not careful, there's a risk of it knocking your broom off your broom. The task of the 2 hitters assigned to the team is to protect the players from being hit by the bludgers. In addition, there is this, which can often be the key to the game. The golden snitch. As long as you catch it, you can get 150 points. Most of the time, as long as you catch it, you will win the game. The person responsible for this task on a Quidditch team is the Seeker. Thomas nodded, then looked at Marcus and said. Activate it. Ah? Captain Black, this. I said, activate it. All right. Marcus nodded, then pressed on the golden snitch. The next second, 2 golden thin wings stretched out from both sides of the golden ball, flapped rapidly, and instantly shot out and broke away from Marcus' palm. Thomas simply extended his hand slightly, then shook it forward. When he opened his palm again, the golden snitch that had shot out suddenly appeared in his hand. The golden snitch hadn't even made a move when he was caught the next second. How is this possible? Oh my god, Merlin's flowery pants, this is a miracle. Marcus said in surprise. Thomas just smiled and shook his head, then put the golden snitch into Marcus's hands. The position of Slytherin Seeker will be assigned to me when the time comes. Of course, Captain Black, you are a natural seeker. Marcus quickly complimented. Just at the moment when the golden snitch was in the air, Thomas's eyes immediately caught a magical arc. Or he could sense the source of the magic in the core of the golden snitch. The golden snitch is an alchemical item, so it is normal for it to have a magical core, but why can't I capture it? Since I can catch the golden snitch, then I can also catch other alchemical items with magical cores. With this thought in mind, Thomas greeted Marcus and immediately turned and left. Because Thomas thought that this unknown ability must be investigated, and if it is only used on the golden snitch, it would be a bit of a waste of talent. If he wanted, he could even manipulate the game, but that would inevitably be too boring. All wishes are granted in the house. There were dozens of alchemical tools placed around Thomas, many of which he had asked Kreaker to deliver urgently. And when he urged or activated the alchemical props, the corresponding magic lines also emerged. There are 3 known colors: red is dangerous, and it is a damaging alchemical item. Yellow, control alchemical item. Green, auxiliary or no danger at all. Chapter 32. The 3 days were finally up, and the competition between Gryffindor and Slytherin finally began. The 4 platforms were filled with Hogwarts students and teachers, which shows how popular Quidditch is among wizards. The wooden door in front of him slowly rose up, but Thomas, as the captain, did not fly out immediately. Instead, he looked at the team members beside him and spoke. Well, gentlemen, the competition is about to begin. I would like to say one last thing: glory belongs to Slytherin. As Thomas finished speaking, Marcus shouted the slogan loudly. In an instant, the atmosphere of the entire team reached a climax. Thomas watched the scene with satisfaction, then turned over, mounted his flying broom and rushed out quickly. The rest of the team members followed closely behind. Hello everyone, and welcome to the first Quidditch match of the school year at Hogwarts. Today's match will be between Slytherin and Gryffindor. As the host finished speaking, the students on the platforms of both academies instantly burst into deafening cheers. Humph, my cousin is here in person, Gryffindor is bound to lose this game. Malfoy raised his head proudly and said in a proud tone. Goyle and Crabbe on the side also echoed it. In fact, it was not just them. In the eyes of the other Slytherins, after Thomas took action, there was no suspense in this game at all. The sharp-eyed people from Gryffindor and other houses have already discovered the clues. Oh my god, look at Slytherin's broom, it looks like a Nimbus 2000. Yeah, wait, no, that's not right, their entire house team's brooms are Nimbus 2000s. For a moment, protests were heard from the Gryffindor spectators. The referee also noticed this. What's going on? The professor on the stage asked in confusion. It's Slytherin, they're cheating, the brooms they use are all Nimbus 2000s. Lee Jordan said dissatisfiedly. Although his voice was very low, Thomas, who was flying high in the sky, still heard it. Thomas just raised the corner of his mouth slightly in disdain, but Lee Jordan saw this as a provocation to Gryffindor. To be honest, when Thomas was reading the original novel, he really didn't like the black narrator very much. In fact, it was not that Gryffindor and Slytherin disliked each other. But now your identity is a commentator, but you still have to bring this kind of emotion into the commentary, which is a bit too much. Just as Lee Jordan was about to say something else, Professor McGonagall spoke. Although she is the head of Gryffindor, she is also the vice-headmaster of Hogwarts. This kind of practice of stepping down on one and praising another does not exist in her case. Because in her eyes, everyone is a student of Hogwarts, and there is no such thing as high or low. That's enough, Mr. Jordan. Hogwarts has never prohibited any player from using any broom. I don't want you to bring your emotions into the commentary. In your eyes, Hogwarts has 4 colleges, but in my eyes, the 4 colleges are Hogwarts. After Professor McGonagall finished speaking, he sat back in his seat. Lee Jordan was speechless for a moment. Indeed, there had never been any regulations on the brooms used by the players in Quidditch matches at Hogwarts. Are you envious of Slytherin players' Nimbus 2000? That's okay. Can you buy it if you have gold galleons? It's a very realistic question. On the other side of the podium, the Gryffindors saw that the judges had not made any reaction, and they knew that they had tacitly accepted the situation. We can only cheer even louder, hoping to give some spiritual help to the participating players. But they didn't know that the cruel scene was just about to begin. The players on both sides descended to the same height, while the Seeker hovered above the players. Harry is still the Seeker of the Gryffindor team, but this time he tied his long hair up high with a rubber band, giving him a heroic look. As for why Harry hasn't turned back into Harry yet, that's Harry's own choice and Thomas has no right to ask. Gryffindors don't lose. Harry looked at Thomas and spoke, but her tone seemed to lack confidence. Is that so? Then I'm in trouble. After all, our dean has given me a death order. Thomas said with pretended sadness. Then, Haha, just kidding, Harley, show your true skills, otherwise this game might be boring. By the way, did you just want to say that you wanted to let the water go? Humph, no. Harry raised his head somewhat arrogantly and looked away. Mrs. Hodge steps onto the field and announces the start of the game. The host's voice sounded again, but this time it was a female voice. It seemed that the black guy was replaced. I hope today's game will be fair and exciting. As Mrs. Hodge opened the box, 2 small balls, one black and one gold, jumped out instantly. The bludger took off, followed by the golden snitch. 2 thin green and red beams of light appeared in Thomas's eyes. Quaffle, the game begins. In the blink of an eye, the quaffle appeared in Thomas's hands. Wait, isn't he the Seeker? Oliver Wood, the captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team, said in confusion. Humph, who told you that the Seeker must find the ball? Gryffindor is bound to lose this game. Marcus said disdainfully. Everything happened in an instant, and the rest of the Gryffindor team members quickly chased after Thomas, trying to stop him. Bang! As the quaffle went into the hole, cheers rang out. Thomas Black scores, Slytherin scores 10 points. Gran gets the ball and Katie Bell passes it to Captain Oliver Wood. The Gryffindor members who got the ball formed a shape and stabbed towards the Slytherin goal like a sharp knife. As the distance continued to shorten, the opportunity was right in front of him. Without any hesitation, Oliver Wood immediately recognized the quaffle in his hand. But the expected goal did not appear. Marcus swept the tail of his broom and directly knocked the quaffle away, and the ball fell into the hands of Slytherin again. Thomas Black scores a goal, plus 10 points for Slytherin. The Slytherins in the audience were completely excited. Over the years, Gryffindor and Slytherin had always been evenly matched, but most of the time, Gryffindor was always the better team. Basically, the winner of the Quidditch House Cup every year has always been Gryffindor. Chapter 33. But this year is different, they see hope for Slytherin to win the championship. 30, 40, 50. For a while, the scoreboard seemed to be dominated by Thomas. Apart from announcing and passing the ball, the commentator basically only mentioned Thomas's name. Unlike Slytherin, whose cheers never stopped, a solemn atmosphere continued to surround Gryffindor, unless something unexpected happened. This game may see the most embarrassing incident in the history of Hogwarts Quidditch, and Gryffindors may have their heads shaved. Ronald, the former anti-snake general of Gryffindor, did not complain or insult Slytherin, which was very rare at this moment. He just watched Thomas scoring continuously in the air quietly, and no one knew what he was thinking. 100 points. 110 points. The suspense of the game is already minimal. If Gryffindor wants to turn the tide, there is only one way, and that is to catch the golden snitch. This would be the only way for Gryffindor to turn defeat into victory, and the hopes of the entire house rested on Harry alone. And Harry was also trying hard to find the golden snitch. The next second, something strange happened. Harley, who was originally flying well, suddenly lost control of her broom. The broom started to shake wildly and almost threw Harley out. "Damn it, what the hell is going on?" Ronald said worriedly that Harley was no longer just his good brother, but also his secret crush. This situation made him very anxious. The perceptive Hermione discovered something unusual with a telescope. On the teacher's podium, Snape had a worried look on his face, but his mouth was opening and closing constantly. It's Snape. He doesn't want Harry to catch the snitch, so he put a curse on the broom. How is this possible? He's so nice to Harry. Ronald said with some confusion. He had also discovered a problem during this period. Although the old bat always had a cold face towards everyone. But he treated Harry differently and gave Harry a lot of extra points in potions class, but he deducted all of them. He thought he had done nothing wrong, he just sat next to Harry during class. Forget it, just look for yourself. Seeing that her persuasion was futile, Hermione could only hand the telescope to Ronald. Ronald took the telescope and looked into the distance, and it was indeed the case. What should we do, Hermione? We have to help Harry. Don't worry, just look at me. Hermione said as she ran downstairs. At the same time, Slytherin's score reached a terrifying 140 points. Almost there, Thomas thought to himself, and then controlled the broom under him to fly towards Harry. At this moment, Harry's situation was very dangerous. She had fallen off the flying broom and could only hold on to the broom handle tightly with her hands to avoid falling directly. When everyone on the field saw this scene, they couldn't help but break into a cold sweat for Harry. At the same time, Harry felt as if her clothes were grabbed by a big hand, and then her body continued to move upwards and returned to the broom. She turned around and saw that the owner of the big hand was Thomas. On the other side, Hermione also appeared on the stairs of the teachers' seats, showing her wand and whispering to Snape's robes. The flames are blazing. Instantly a small flame appeared on Snape's body and burned quickly. Professor Snape, you're on fire. A professor spoke up, and it was then that Snape noticed the smoke on his body, and he stood up suddenly, stepping on his robes. The commotion nearby also happened to affect Quirrell, the real owner of the curse. In the panic, a professor accidentally hit Quirrell in the face while swinging his arm. Due to inertia, Quirrell was knocked off the platform and his head hit the ground. "Oh, Merlin, are you okay, Professor Quirrell? Come on, I'll take you to see Madame Pomfret now." As the professor spoke, he took Quirrell's hand and walked towards the infirmary. Quirrell, who was originally having a severe headache, suddenly woke up. Look at the back of the head. What about the owner? At this moment, he no longer cared about the close contact between his master's face and the ground. He knew that if he was exposed, even if he escaped from Hogwarts by chance, he would be hunted down by the entire wizarding world. No, no need. You're too polite. I just fell from a platform more than 10 meters high and landed on my head. Minor injuries, all minor injuries. Are you really okay? The professor said very nervously. After all, at a height of more than 10 meters, if a person is still alive, many bones in his body must be broken. And judging from the situation, it seems that Professor Quirrell has some problems with his brain after the fall. Don't be afraid to see a doctor, Professor Quirrell. I think we should go see a doctor. No. No need. Quirrell simply took out his wand, pointed it at himself, and cast a healing spell. The feeling of countless bones splicing together under his skin made him feel as if he would rather die than live. But living a life worse than death is better than actually dying. Finally, with the last click, Quirrell stood up pale, looked at the worried professor, smiled weakly and said, "See, I told you I'm fine." "Ah, yes, yes, you are fine, you are indeed fine," the professor said embarrassedly, wiping the cold sweat from his head with his robe. He never expected that such an introverted professor would be so cruel to him. Take the sound of the bones joining together just now, for example. Just listening to it makes people feel creepy. No wonder he was able to become a professor of defense against the dark arts, just by being so cruel to himself. He must have some real skills. On the field, without the interference of the spellcaster, Harry's broom returned to normal. "Thank you, Thomas," Harley said gratefully, her face flushed. "It's okay, aren't we friends?" Thomas smiled awkwardly, and suddenly he saw a green light appear in front of his eyes. "It's the golden snitch." Thomas turned the broom and rushed straight towards the light. Harry seemed to react as well and quickly controlled the broom to keep up with Thomas's pace. But in the end, he was a step too slow, and the golden snitch had already been caught by Thomas. With the capture of the golden snitch, the game officially ended. It's Thomas Blake. He caught the golden snitch. He won another 150 points for the team. Miss Hodge, who was watching from the side, also blew the whistle around her neck. Slytherin wins. Wins. Chapter 34. As Ms. Hooch's voice fell, the Slytherin side let out a deafening cheer. They won, Slytherin won, with such an almost crushing method and a terrifying score of 290 points. Glory to Slytherin, long live cousin! Malfoy shouted excitedly while standing in the audience, as if he was the one holding the golden snitch at the moment. When Goyle and Crabbe saw that the young master had spoken, they also shouted loudly, but they were not Malfoy after all, and they did not have such a close relationship with Thomas, so they could only call him by his last name. Glory to Slytherin, long live Black! Glory to Slytherin, long live Black! The shouts continued, one after another. Thomas and his team members just sat on their broomsticks, enjoying the cheers of the winners. After the game, Thomas walked out of the stadium and was immediately greeted by the cheers and shouts of the Slytherins. "Thomas, you've worked hard in the competition. This is for you. It's the orange juice I made myself. I hope you like it," Daphne said as she pulled out a kettle and handed it to Thomas. Thomas was stunned at first. He didn't expect that Daphne would actually hear his complaint about the only drink at Hogwarts being pumpkin juice. But after all, they had worked hard to make it, and it was a thoughtful gesture. Thomas didn't think too much about it. He just said thank you, then took the kettle and started drinking. As for talking about love, don't be funny. You are dealing with little kids. How can they understand feelings? If you really want to say something, wait until after graduation. But to be honest, it tastes really good with its sweet and sour taste. Daphne looked at Thomas lovingly and wiped the sweat and dust off Thomas's face with her handkerchief. The girls who had already prepared kettles and drinks on the side felt heartbroken when they saw this scene. But there was nothing much to say. Blake and Greengrass both belonged to the sacred 28 families. If you had to say it, these two people standing together could indeed be considered a well-matched couple. As the orange juice in the kettle was finished, Thomas immediately covered the kettle. "How does it taste?" Daphne asked expectantly. "It tastes good. I like it very much. Cousin, you are here." A voice broke the wonderful atmosphere, and then a platinum-colored head suddenly emerged from the crowd, followed by two little fat men. The three were none other than the Malfoy trio. "Oh, it's Draco. What's wrong? What do you want from me?" Thomas said with a smile. When Malfoy heard Thomas's reply, he spoke excitedly without paying attention to Daphne's dissatisfied look. "Of course I have something to say, cousin. The scene where you just caught the golden snitch was so cool. Cousin, you don't know that the moment you caught the golden snitch, many Gryffindors almost cried. Their faces were as gloomy as water." Thomas looked around at the Gryffindors who had not yet left the scene and said helplessly to Malfoy. "Draco, it's just a competition. Winning and losing are normal. Don't hurt the harmony between the different colleges." "Humph, so what? Win is win, lose is lose. Let them win back if you have the guts." When Malfoy said this, he deliberately raised the volume to ensure that everyone present could hear it. Thomas could see that many of the Gryffindors who were leaving had clenched their fists. He turned his head and looked at Malfoy's naughty expression, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. To be honest, Malfoy was so arrogant, it was a blessing that he didn't get beaten. Really? How about you take my place in tomorrow's game? Really? I can take your place, cousin. Malfoy said excitedly that Quidditch could be said to be his dream, but due to age restrictions and dangers, his family did not support it very much. Of course, aren't Harry and I first years, and I'm the captain of the Slytherin Quidditch team. You will take my place tomorrow and serve as the Seeker. If you have any questions, just tell them to come to me directly. That's awesome, cousin. There is actually nothing wrong with Thomas's arrangement, because Slytherin is a strong team, especially with the comprehensive update of their equipment. The probability of failure is very small, even negligible, and Malfoy is a talented player in Quidditch. Otherwise, he would not have been allowed to join the team as a sophomore in the original book. Third, don't think that the golden snitch is easy to catch. You must know that not everyone has cheats and the aura of the protagonist like Thomas and Harry. For example, the more formal Quidditch games in the wizarding world can last as long as more than a month. This is also the reason why wizards who watch the game bring their own tents. So basically, it doesn't matter who takes this position. After making arrangements for Malfoy, Thomas felt a little hungry and prepared to go to the cafeteria for dinner. However, it was very rare that Thomas was not with the Malfoy trio this time. In Malfoy's words, there was not much time left for training and he had to hurry up. Thomas didn't say anything about this and just let him be. After all, he was just Malfoy's cousin and not his parents, so he couldn't control so much. Just as Thomas was eating in the cafeteria, a voice rang out. Thomas, Hermione, and Ronald have discovered a secret. Are you available now? Thomas looked up and saw that the voice belonged to Harry. According to the current relationship between the two houses, once Gryffindor appeared in Slytherin's place, it was bound to be ridiculed. But the person who came happened to be Harry. Due to the old bats doting on her, anyone with a discerning eye could see Snape's special treatment of Harry in the past 3 days, so no one was willing to go to Snape's side to express his unhappiness. In addition, Harry and Hermione were Thomas's friends, and everyone was aware of the situation. Thomas swallowed the food in his mouth, took the orange water handed to him by Daphne and took a sip. Let's go, I'm full too. After Thomas finished speaking, he was about to get up, but Harry looked at Daphne with a very obscure look. But Thomas said it didn't matter and said, It's okay. Daphne is someone you can trust. To be honest, being well versed in the plot, he had basically guessed what Harry would talk about next, most likely about the spell and the Chamber of Secrets on the field today. When Daphne heard Thomas's words, the corners of her mouth slightly raised, like a blooming laurel flower. Chapter 35. Harry hesitated for a moment, but finally chose to compromise. Oh well. A corridor in Hogwarts Castle. Hermione and Ronald saw Thomas and the other two coming, and although Daphne was a little confused, she didn't say much. During this period of time, Hermione and Daphne have been getting along with each other, and they have developed a feeling of being close friends. This time, Hermione asked Harry to call people alone because she didn't want to involve her best friend in this matter. Ronald, who was standing by, was instinctively a little afraid when he saw Thomas and wanted to step back, and Thomas also noticed this. In his eyes, everyone has his own value, including Ronald of course. Although he sometimes speaks without thinking and acts rashly, you cannot deny his strengths. In the original book, he values friendship and is willing to sacrifice and dedicate himself to his friends. Judging from his mastery of wizard chess, Ronald is not stupid, he just lacks a heart for learning. If you say that Ronald hates Slytherin, that is unnecessary. After all, the feud between Gryffindor and Slytherin dates back thousands of years, and the students from both sides have always disliked each other. Ronald was just a child, how could he understand so much? He was just a pawn pushed forward by Dumbledore to guide the savior. Come here, Ronald, we don't actually have any grudges against each other, right? To be honest, maybe we can be friends. You really want to be friends with me? Ronald said with some excitement that although Gryffindor looked down on Slytherin, they had to acknowledge Thomas's achievements and abilities. Therefore, Thomas is also a hot topic of discussion in Gryffindor, especially among female wizards. Of course, why not? You see, Harry, Hermione and I are good friends too, right? And your two brothers, they are also Gryffindors?" Thomas asked back. After hearing what Thomas said, Ronald also lowered his head in shame. "I'm sorry that I've been slandering you all this time because of my prejudice against Slytherin." Thomas was also stunned when he heard Ronald's apology, then he said with a smile, "It's okay. There's an old saying in the Celestial Empire that goes, 'A smile can save all grudges,' right? Besides, we don't have any grudges between us. It was just a verbal offense." "Thank you, Thomas, for being willing to forgive me," Ronald said with some gratitude. Everyone chatted for a while and then got down to business. "Hermione, you go ahead and tell me." "Okay." Hermione then nodded and looked at Thomas and Daphne before speaking. "At today's Quidditch match, I saw Professor Snape use the mildew hex on Harry with my own eyes. The prerequisite for casting a spell is to stare at the other person without blinking and chant the spell continuously. But after I burned Professor Snape's cloak, the curse stopped." "Yes, I saw that too," Ronald said excitedly. "So, you think Professor Snape wants to harm Harry? What is the specific reason?" "Professor Snape is the dean of the college. Slandering a professor is a very serious matter. Maybe I'll be expelled from the academy. And you all saw how much Professor Snape cared about Harry, didn't you? Or, to put it another way, someone wants to hurt Harry, and Professor Snape is casting a counterspell." Hermione seemed to have thought of something and spoke quickly. "Right, how could I have forgotten this, counter-curse?" Ronald and Harry were looking at Hermione with confusion at this moment. And Hermione explained without reservation. "In the wizarding world, apart from the 3 unforgivable curses, all other magic has corresponding spells, including dark magic, and its corresponding spell is also called a counterspell. When I looked through the telescope today, the expression on Professor Snape's face was one of worry, but I was so anxious at the time that I ignored it. So, it was Professor Snape who saved me." Harry said with some guilt, "After all, it was not very good that someone just saved you and then you slandered him." "Very likely," Hermione continued. "But this doesn't make sense." After Professor Snape stopped chanting the spell, the abnormality of Harry's broom did stop. Is it possible that the culprit was not Professor Snape, but someone else in the teaching booth, because Professor Snape's robes caught fire and caused the riot? Thomas's words instantly enlightened the 3 little ones. "So, Thomas, you're saying the culprit is the professor, but we don't know which one?" Harry said excitedly. He felt that he was about to find the truth. "No, I didn't say anything. I hope that we will know what happened today in the end. And as I said before, slandering the professor is a felony. So, what else is there next?" Thomas asked in a calm tone. The 3 of them looked at each other, and then Harley stood up. "Thomas, do you remember the first time you ran into us during our night tour?" "Certainly." Thomas nodded and then spoke. Daphne looked at the 4 people and felt a little dizzy. What did she just hear? Night tour? Why is this forbidden thing so common among the 4 people, as common as drinking water every day? Before Daphne could continue her brainstorm, Harley threw out another big idea. "I'm afraid we already know what's hidden in the room where the 3-headed dog is imprisoned." Thomas looked at Harley and the 3 little ones who were so confident in front of him, and finally he chose to cooperate with the performance. "Oh, what is it?" "It's the Philosopher's Stone," Harley said seriously. "It was the day we first met. Hagrid took me to pick up something, and not long after that, Gringotts was robbed. But the goblins posted that nothing was stolen, and that's because Hagrid took it away. So we are sure that thing must be the Philosopher's Stone." "That's right." "Right. Well, even if it's the Philosopher's Stone, Headmaster Dumbledore has sealed it in Hogwarts and has arranged for a 3-headed dog to guard it. I don't think we should worry about this." That's right, Thomas was not worried about the dog that fell asleep when listening to music, the devil's vine that shrank when exposed to light, the densely packed keys floating in the air, and the wizard chess. Except for the first one, these correspond to Hermione's wisdom, Harry's skills, and Ronald's bravery. Dumbledore has set up the stage, and you just have to perform. What else can you say? After hearing what Thomas said, the 3 of them looked at each other, not knowing what to say for a moment. Thomas also stood up from his seat randomly. "Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Of course, if you have any questions, you can come to me. We are friends, right?" The moment he finished speaking, Thomas left the room with a dashing back to the 3 of them. And Daphne chased after him. immediately. Chapter 36. After Professor Quirrell rested for several days, the long-awaited defense against the dark arts class for the first-year students officially began. Master, are you sure you want to do this? Will it be bad for your health? In the office, Quirrell asked cautiously. Haha, don't worry, my loyal servant, all of this is necessary. Before Quirrell could respond, a powerful force instantly covered Quirrell's entire body. The original humble and cowardly aura was instantly swept away, replaced by a kind of self-confidence that radiated from the inside out. This is an affirmation of one's own strength from a strong person. Before the class started, everyone's opinions of Quirrell had always been not very good. After all, the feeling that Quirrell himself had shown recently was really hard to compliment. Specifically, he was too timid. Many people doubt whether such a professor can teach the defense against the dark arts course well. As the figure with a turban wrapped around his head walked into the classroom, the originally noisy environment instantly became quiet. A strange feeling emerged in everyone's heart. Cousin, do you feel that Professor Quirrell seems different from before? It's strange. Malfoy leaned over to Thomas's ear and whispered. Thomas also nodded, indicating his agreement with Malfoy's question. From the moment Quirrell walked into the classroom, the system prompted that there was an evil soul around him. Needless to say, Quirrell's body had probably been taken over by Voldemort. Speaking of Voldemort, he is also a tragic figure. If Voldemort had chosen another path at that time, he would probably be teaching this course at Hogwarts now, and he might even become the headmaster many years later. After all, Dumbledore still values and recognizes Tom Riddle as a student. Voldemort walked up to the podium and glanced at the students below, his gaze focusing on Thomas and Harry for a few seconds. Very good. I believe everyone already knows my identity clearly, so I don't need to introduce myself anymore. Students should all know that defense against the dark arts is a course designed to prevent the dark arts. So how much do you know about the basic concepts and components of black magic? Has anyone learned about it? Hermione had already raised her right hand high. Very well, Mr. Black, you answer this question. Thomas was also stunned after hearing what Voldemort said, but when he thought about his family's former identity and ideals, it seemed normal for him to be treated specially because he had no nose. After all, Voldemort was still using Quirrell's identity, so there was no need for him to fall out with him. Professor, the concept of black magic is divided into 4 types: evil spells, poison spells, curses, and unforgivable curses. Very good, Mr. Black's answer is correct, 10 points for Slytherin. Voldemort looked at Thomas in front of him and said with satisfaction. In his opinion, the reason why Thomas could analyze these dark arts so thoroughly just showed Thomas's desire for powerful strength. From this, we can judge that Thomas must have studied black magic a lot in private. Of course, this is exactly the case. Not to mention anything else, Thomas has already mastered the 3 unforgivable curses to level 6. In Voldemort's opinion, this kind of person with desires is exactly the easiest to control. Mr. Black mentioned the classification of these black magics before, but compared to the real danger, the first 3 are actually minor problems that can be ignored. That's because all dark magic has a corresponding counterspell, except for the unforgivable curses. The unforgivable curses are called unforgivable because once this series of curses hits, there will be no way to remove it. So, Mr. Black, what are the unforgivable curses? The Killing Curse, the Dementor Curse, and the Crucifixion Curse, Professor. Very good, 10 points for Slytherin. As Quirrell's courses progressed, more and more young wizards were attracted by this fun and exploratory teaching method. Voldemort was an expert at using the charm of language. After all, many adult wizards would be bewitched by it, not to mention the little kids who had just entered the wizarding world. But despite this, most of the time Voldemort would stop at the right time. After all, if he went too far and Dumbledore found out, his plans would most likely be completely ruined. Happy times always pass quickly. As the bell rang for the end of Get Out of Class, many students showed expressions of reluctance on their faces. It can be seen that everyone prefers Voldemort's teaching. Just as Thomas packed up his books and prepared to leave the classroom, Voldemort's voice suddenly rang out. Mr. Black, please stay for a moment. When Malfoy and the others heard this, they all chose to stay in the classroom, intending to wait for Thomas to leave together, but they were rejected by Thomas. Draco, you two should go first. Professor Quirrell may have something to discuss with me alone. Okay, cousin, let's go to the cafeteria first. As Malfoy and the others walked out of the door, Thomas and Voldemort were the only ones left in the huge classroom. Under Thomas's wizard robe, the wand was firmly held in his hand. As long as Voldemort in front of him did something wrong, Thomas would respond immediately by hitting him hard in return. "Mr. Black, you're excellent, aren't you? Just like the man he once was, Regulus. Well, the real purpose has been exposed, right? Voldemort's probing methods have been shown too obviously." But Thomas still maintained a peaceful smile on the surface and spoke. "Thank you for the compliment, Professor Quirrell. Black is always pure." Thomas recited the Black family motto without any psychological burden. This sentence has many meanings. Originally it may mean purity of soul, but in the past few hundred years, purity in this sentence has only represented one meaning: bloodline. The Black family is one of the 28 sacred families, and the philosophy of Voldemort's Death Eaters is to create a world composed of noble bloodlines. The meanings of the two coincide. Facts have proved that Thomas did the right thing. When Voldemort heard Thomas's words, a smile of approval appeared on Quirrell's pale face. "Mr. Black, you are right. Black is always pure. As a professor, I have prepared a small gift for you. I think you will like it." Then he slowly put his hand into the bag beside him and took out a notebook. Chapter 37. Thank you for your generosity, Professor Quirrell. I am sure this notebook will be of great help to me. As Thomas spoke, he looked at the notebook. No lines of any color appeared in front of him. To be on the safe side, he used the system to check it again. After confirming that there was no problem, he took the notebook with the hand that was not holding the wand. "Then I'll go to the cafeteria to eat, Professor Quirrell." "Well, go ahead and eat more. Now is the time for you young people to grow up," Voldemort said kindly. Thomas's mouth twitched slightly when he heard this, and then he quickly left the classroom. And Voldemort turned and walked towards his office. Bang! As the office door closed, Quirrell collapsed powerlessly on the sofa beside him, as if all his energy had been sucked out by the vela. When Voldemort was controlling Quirrell's body, the real Quirrell was actually always in a bystander's perspective, watching this scene happen silently. And every time this kind of possession happened, it was an extremely life-threatening thing for Quirrell, but he had no way to stop it. As things stand, he and Voldemort are in a symbiotic relationship, and he doesn't have the courage to disobey his current master. Master! I should teach him from now on. After all, with your noble status, condescending to teach a group of freshmen, wouldn't it be a bit too much? Quirrell said hesitantly. Ignorant fool! A hoarse and cold voice sounded. This kid has incredible potential, and his philosophy is very much in line with mine. I have a strong feeling that it won't be long before I have another loyal and powerful servant. Besides, he has already accepted my gift. Just wait and see. It won't be long before he comes back to see me again. Then, when he comes to see you again, you will come forward. Madness! Today, I have already established a perfect image in front of him. Do you want all my efforts during this period to go to waste? So what do you mean? From now on, I will teach all the classes related to Thomas Blake. But, your body is recovering and this may affect you. Quirrell was really about to cry at this moment. It really wasn't his own body, so he could just make it up. Voldemort frowned slightly at the back of his head, then sighed helplessly and spoke in a soft tone. Don't worry, my most loyal servant. I will also take care of your body. After all, we are one now, right? The planning has already begun, and everything is going smoothly. As long as I get the Philosopher's Stone, I can create a brand new body, including granting you eternal life and great strength. You helped me when I was at my weakest, and the Dark Lord will never let his servants down. You can rest assured about this. If it really doesn't work, just go hunt more unicorns tonight. Don't worry, Master, I won't let you down, Quirrell said in a fanatical tone. Voldemort's big plan was enough to temporarily stabilize Quirrell. On the other side, Thomas also came to the cafeteria and started to eat heartily. By the way, cousin, why did Professor Quirrell ask you to stay just now? Malfoy asked curiously, swallowing a mouthful of potato. The people around also turned their eyes to Thomas. It's a compliment, of course. Thomas cut a piece of beef, put it in his mouth and chewed it slowly while speaking. Everyone was quite satisfied with this explanation. After all, this situation had basically become the norm in everyone's eyes. As an excellent student at Hogwarts, Thomas is now basically a favorite of all professors. The scores for each class were constantly increased, and it was common for students to be kept after class for praise. Just when they were ready to take a walk to digest their food and drink, Harley's trio arrived again. "Thomas, are you free now?" "Sure, what's up, Harley?" Thomas asked curiously, completely ignoring Malfoy and Ronald, who had already started to argue with each other. Harry looked around first, then leaned close to Thomas and whispered. "It's like this, Hagrid won a dragon egg some time ago, and we wanted to ask you to go and see it, but it wouldn't be a good idea if there were too many people." Thomas nodded, then agreed to the topic. He was also very interested in the living fire-breathing lizard, oh no, dragon. Just as he was about to ask Malfoy and the others to leave, Malfoy suddenly stopped arguing with Ronald and ran over excitedly. "Cousin, Weasley bet me 1 galleon that there is a dragon in Hogwarts." "This stupid idiot, how could there be a dragon in Hogwarts? This guy is doomed to lose. I'll see what he does then," Malfoy said excitedly, and Harry glared at Ronald but didn't say much. After all, they were all friends, so they might as well go together. So the 6-member team, which was composed of half Slytherin and half Gryffindor, walked out of the castle under the strange looks of the other 2 houses. People who don't know the truth might really think that the students from the 2 colleges are going to have some kind of gambling fight, but the way they are talking and laughing doesn't seem like it. "Hagrid, here we come." "Oh, it's Harley, are you here?" Hagrid's voice was heard from the small room, and soon the door was opened. At first Hagrid felt nothing, everything seemed the same as usual, until he saw the 3 figures in green robes. "Slytherin." "Yes, Mr. Hagrid, my name is Thomas Blake, and I believe we have met many times." "Daphne Greengrass." "Draco Malfoy." Malfoy said a little timidly. "Hagrid, Thomas, and the others are very good people. They are all my friends." Harley spoke up. "Yes, Hagrid, they are good people." "Yes." Hermione and Ronald also hurriedly responded. "Well, to be honest, this is the first time I've seen Gryffindor and Slytherin being friends, but since you're all Harry's friends, I welcome you," Hagrid said as he made way for them, planning to invite a few people into the house. Although he was prejudiced against Slytherin, most of them were wizards who did bad things after graduation. He has always been kind and gentle to children. Chapter 38. Noble the Fire Dragon. Everyone then walked into the house together. Hagrid's house was not big, and the entire environment could be seen at a glance. Whiskey bottles were scattered all over the floor. The sofa and furniture were all damaged and chewed. Yaya hid in the corner, trembling and not daring to make any sound. Thomas speculated that this might be due to blood suppression. After all, Hagrid's big dog looks ferocious, but is actually very timid. "Nobel, baby, I'm back." The next second, in full view of everyone, Hagrid took the baby dragon out of the broken sofa. "What can I say about this baby dragon? After all, it is not quite the same as the divine dragon of China. In addition, it is tiny in size and looks like a little bat. Anyway, it does not look very good." The connection between the long and thin wings was covered with bone spurs, the nose was very large, the orange-red eyes bulged outward, and there were 2 thin bags on the forehead, probably the dragon horns that had not yet grown. "There really is a dragon," Malfoy said in surprise. "So, you should be willing to admit defeat, Malfoy." Ronald raised the corner of his mouth and stretched out his hand, signaling Malfoy to fulfill the bet. "Of course, you're lucky this time, Weasley." As Malfoy spoke, he took out a gold galleon from the pocket of his wizard robe and placed it in Ronald's hand. Then he focused all his attention on the little fire dragon in Hagrid's arms. "Oh my god, this is so cool! Look at his wings, and these fangs!" Malfoy said excitedly. "Of course, our Nobo is the most beautiful," Hagrid said proudly, and then the 2 of them excitedly discussed it together. When Charmander saw the 2 people who were excitedly discussing, he felt that he was being left out. He opened his mouth and bit Hagrid's finger hard. "Oh, Merlin's red stockings! Look, it recognizes its mother. How amazing!" Thomas and the other 4 couldn't help but roll their eyes as they looked at the 2 excited people. Hermione asked curiously as she suddenly thought of something. "Hagrid, Norbert, how fast can it grow?" "I don't think I'm quite clear about this." Hagrid spoke hesitantly, clearly not wanting to answer the question, and Thomas saw this but remained silent. After all, he and Hagrid had just introduced their names to each other. Too much concern would not make people feel good about him, but would be a bit redundant. After putting aside Norbert's topic, everyone began to discuss some interesting things that happened in Hogwarts recently. Before leaving, Hagrid enthusiastically took out rock cakes and planned to share them with everyone, but was politely rejected by everyone. After all, the taste of this thing is not to mention the key point that it is very chewy. They all walked back together on the path, but when they were halfway there, Hermione suddenly stopped, looked at Thomas and asked, "Thomas, I noticed this when I asked Hagrid about Norbert's growth cycle just now. Do you know the answer to this question?" Daphne, who was beside Thomas, couldn't help but frown when she heard this. At this moment, she seemed to have discovered another problem. Why did Hermione focus her eyes on Thomas when she asked Hagrid questions? "Whether you know it or not, what does it matter?" Thomas shrugged his shoulders and prepared to continue walking towards Hogwarts Castle. After all, dinner time was almost here. "Cousin, just tell me about Norbert's growth cycle." "Yes, Thomas, I would like to know that too." Harry and Malfoy also asked with curiosity on their faces, while Ronald's attention was still on the gold galleon he won from Malfoy today. For Ronald, who only had 10 nuts in pocket money every semester, the money he had in his hands at the moment was undoubtedly a huge sum of money. Thomas looked at the people in front of him, sighed helplessly, and then spoke. "Hagrid's little dragon, if I'm not mistaken, should be a Norwegian ridgeback, and this kind of dragon is about 50 feet in size when it grows up. If nothing unexpected happens, Hagrid's cabin will be completely unable to accommodate Norbert in 3 weeks at most. And in the current wizarding world, except in dragon sanctuaries, it is strictly forbidden to keep dragons. If Hagrid is discovered, it will probably be a big trouble. And, as you have seen in the cabin, Norbert has a lot of energy, and this is just the beginning." After hearing what Thomas said, everyone fell into deep thought. They had thought that it would be troublesome if Norbert was discovered, but they didn't expect it to be so troublesome. "How about I write to my father and see if he has any solution?" Malfoy said hesitantly. "I also have a brother who works at the Fire Dragon Reserve. I can also contact him to come and help." Ronald also volunteered to speak. "Humph." The two looked at each other, then turned their heads to the other side. "Thomas, if you know so much, why didn't you tell Hagrid earlier?" Harry asked confused. Thomas shook his head, then reached out and patted Harry on the shoulder, then continued walking towards the castle. "This world is not all about fighting and killing, it is more about the human relationships and social customs." However, Harry and the others are just kids who have just entered the wizarding world, so Thomas doesn't intend to preach to them. At night, when everyone had fallen into sweet dreams, Thomas entered the room of requirement again and opened Voldemort's notebook. It has to be said that Voldemort really spent a lot of money to attract Thomas. This notebook records at least a dozen kinds of black magic, including counter curses. And the content is very detailed, allowing people to understand better. So Thomas quickly entered the ocean of knowledge. At the same time in the Forbidden Forest. "Oh my God, who on earth would hurt you so cruelly?" Hagrid knelt on the ground with a sad look on his face, and in front of him lay a snow-white horse with a spiral horn on its head. There is no doubt that this is a unicorn, and after the unicorn let out its last wail, it completely lost its life. What caused the unicorn's death was the long wound on its neck. A lot of silvery white blood was still flowing out and dripping onto the ground. Hagrid was in great pain watching this scene. He had originally tried to save the unicorn, but there was no way because it was too badly injured. He really couldn't understand why anyone would hurt such a pure creature. The situation in the Forbidden Forest was getting worse and was beyond his control. This matter must be notified to Professor Dumbledore. Chapter 39. After squeezing out the last drop of magic, Thomas left the room of requirement with satisfaction. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, a door he had never seen before appeared before him. After checking the Marauder's map and making sure there was no problem, he opened the door. The interior of the room looked like a classroom, seemingly abandoned for a long time. Just as he was about to leave, a thin green line appeared in his eyes, accompanied by the guidance of the thin line. A huge mirror appeared in front of him. The mirror was very majestic, about 2 meters high, with a golden frame on the outside and 3 small golden towers on top. There are 2 claw-shaped brackets underneath. The Mirror of Ariste. A name came to Thomas's mind. There is also a passage engraved on the top of the mirror, which reads Eriststra eruoid u bekafruoid on wosi, which roughly means what I show you is not your face, but your true inner desire. The desire in my heart, interesting. Driven by curiosity, Thomas slowly walked to the mirror of Erist. He also wanted to take a look at his so-called desire. On the other side of the mirror, a huge and magnificent palace was reflected. A huge feathered serpent was hovering around the throne, its wings covering the sky and the sun. Sitting on the throne was a black-haired man in a purple robe, watching everything with a proud look in his eyes. On the other side, there were densely packed wizards with their heads bowed. Their number was as numerous as a sea of sand, and he could not see the end. He became the king. The crown falls on Slytherin, black is always on top. This is what he desires, or rather, this is his goal. Isn't it interesting? A soft voice sounded behind him, and the next second, Thomas's ring lit up, and a golden desert eagle appeared in his hand. The muzzle of the gun was pointed coldly at the owner of the voice. With his magic power exhausted, he could only use hot weapons to fight back. With the help of the moonlight, he could see the owner of the voice, and the gun in his hand returned to the ring again. I'm sorry, Professor Dumbledore, I didn't know it was you. Dumbledore smiled and blinked, not taking Thomas's offense seriously at all. It's okay, kid. When people are panicked, excited, and scared, they always do irrational things. I can understand that. After all, it's my fault for suddenly appearing behind you. Dumbledore smiled and took all the blame for Thomas's offense. Thomas was a little confused for a moment. Was this also a test? He didn't believe that Dumbledore didn't know about the night walk. After all, as the headmaster of Hogwarts, he has the authority to mobilize the mechanisms of the entire castle, coupled with the sudden appearance of this classroom and his recent actions. Test. You are too kind. After all, I did violate the school's rules by going out alone at night. Ha ha ha, don't worry, Thomas. I won't tell anyone about what happened today. After all, in my memory, there is more than one Blake who likes to wander at night. Is this a signal to win me over? Thomas thought. So, can you tell me what you saw, kid? Dumbledore said, pointing to the magic mirror behind Thomas. Of course, Professor Dumbledore, I saw my parents, they were both by my side. I am very happy. As Thomas spoke, an expression of attachment appeared on his face. He was still very confident in the system's brain occlumency. Haha, so that's how it is. I thought you saw yourself becoming the world Quidditch champion. After all, you are very talented in Quidditch, aren't you? You are too kind, Professor Dumbledore. Actually, I prefer potions to Quidditch. If possible, I would like to become a potions master like Dean Snape. Really? This is also a good choice. Severus will be happy if you say that, I know. But it's obvious that you care more about family, don't you? Let me explain to you. The name of this mirror is the Mirror of Erist. It can reflect a person's truest desires. I'm afraid only the happiest people in the world can use it as an ordinary mirror. So, Professor Dumbledore, what did you see? Me? I see I'm holding a pair of comfy wool socks. You can never have enough socks. But, you know, Thomas, it's just a mirror. Yes, Professor Dumbledore. People from the past can never come back to us. Although the contents of the mirror are beautiful, they are indeed illusory. I should focus on the present. After all, I am not alone now. At least I have friends, right, Professor Dumbledore? A mirror is just a mirror. It can never bring us knowledge and truth. Well, that's very well said, Thomas. If it were daytime now, I'd give Slytherin 10 points. But it's getting late now, shouldn't the child be in bed? Of course, Professor Dumbledore. Thomas bowed respectfully, then left the classroom and walked towards Slytherin. Dumbledore was the only one left in the room. Wool socks. They're really comfortable. After today's test, he felt much more at ease about Thomas. After all, that person back then didn't have any friends. The news Hagrid told him today made him realize that time was running out. The tragic death of the unicorn meant that the man could no longer wait. I hope Harley can understand this truth like Thomas. The next morning, a miserable cat's cry woke up the 4 people in the dormitory. Looking up, it was Iris, with her hair standing on end, roaring at Cougar Can. Malfoy and the other 2 also discovered this unique little snake. Oh my god, cousin, Am I seeing right? It actually has wings. Malfoy said in disbelief. I saw the young master too. Yes, master, that snake does have wings. Goyle and Crabbe also spoke up to confirm this. Thomas frowned slightly. Damn it, he came back too late yesterday and forgot to feed Kukulkan. Thomas waved his hand to call back Kukulkan, took out a bag of dried meat from the ring, tore it open and fed it to it. After a while, the full Kukulkan swam contentedly to Thomas's left hand, turned into a golden bracelet, and wrapped around his hand. Draco, Kukulkan is my pet. I don't want a fifth person to know about what happened today. Of course, cousin. Chapter 40. The next day, Harley and others informed Hagrid of Norbert's situation. Hagrid, who knew the situation, hugged Norbert and cried bitterly, as helpless as a 420-month-old baby. During this period, Malfoy came to Thomas several times, hoping to get help from his cousin, but was ruthlessly rejected by Thomas. The peaceful days lasted for a while, until everyone saw a huge drop on Slytherin's nearly full hourglass. Despite this, Slytherin's scores were still far ahead of the other three major houses. As for Gryffindor, it was even more miserable, with scores almost reaching the bottom. When the little lions saw this situation, they gave up completely and decided to do whatever they wanted. The little Slytherin snakes were very dissatisfied and gathered around Thomas, intending to find out the culprit who was damaging the interests of the school. Malfoy, who used to shout the loudest every day, now sat quietly and listlessly eating the food on the plate. Without thinking too much, you can know that the 4 people who secretly sent the fire dragon last night were discovered while swimming at night. Thomas sighed helplessly, persuaded the little snakes gathered around him to retreat, and announced that he would not pursue any action for the matter. In this regard, everyone could only disperse. After all, at least 2/3 of the points in Slytherin's hourglass were earned by Thomas. Now that the real person has spoken, as outsiders they naturally have nothing to say. However, the anger in their hearts could not be quelled, and the discussion shifted from the front stage to behind the scenes. In the dormitory, Thomas fed Iris and Kukulkan respectively, and prepared to take a comfortable nap. After all, if he spent too much time out at night, his sleep quality would be greatly reduced. I can only make up for it during noon. Malfoy looked at Thomas, who had already gone to bed and was about to fall asleep, and finally hesitantly stood up and spoke. Cousin, actually, Norbert was sent away. You must be sad too, Draco. If you want to talk about the score, I can tell you that my attitude is the same as it was at noon. I don't care. I'm sorry, cousin. Draco, you never have to say sorry to me. We are blood relatives, aren't we? After Thomas finished speaking, he closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Malfoy, who was watching this scene, felt very uncomfortable. He suddenly picked up the study materials beside him and began to study seriously. All along, he has been showing off his power outside by using Thomas's name, and Thomas has never said anything about these things. Most of the time, whenever he got into trouble, it was Thomas who helped him to settle it, and now, he also wanted to try his best to help his cousin. With the arrival of the holidays, this is also the happiest time for students. The teaching method of Hogwarts is of a completely closed type. Usually, parents and children can only communicate through letters. Therefore, only during the holidays can students return to their families again. Cousin, how are you going to spend this holiday? Would you like to come with me to Malfoy Manor? My father and mother would like you to visit them too. By the way, why don't we go to Black Manor in the Muggle world? I haven't seen Uncle Mike for a long time. Malfoy said excitedly while stuffing candy into his mouth. It can be seen that he is very satisfied with the arrival of this holiday. I can do anything. Thomas nodded and said that the industry in the Muggle world is gradually being cleansed and getting back on track since the incident with the Bulldog Gang. The Black family has become very popular. After seeing the strength of the Black family, many subordinate forces have chosen to keep a low profile. No one dares to touch the Black family anymore. As for several industries in the magical world, Crush has also arranged corresponding wizards to take over, and many shops have begun to slowly resume normal operations. Overall, he seemed to have nothing to do during this holiday. Accompanied by the roar of the train slowly stopped. The outside of the train was now full of parents who had come to pick up their children, and there was a crowd of people. But Thomas also found something unusual. Dad, Mom! Malfoy shouted excitedly, ran off the train and threw himself into Narcissa's arms. and Lucius was standing quietly by the side, holding the snakehead cane. "Uncle, Aunt." Thomas bowed respectfully and greeted him. "Thomas, I've heard about your performance. You are worthy of being the heir of the Black family. Draco will need you to take good care of him in the academy in the future." "You are too kind, uncle. Draco is my brother, and it is my duty to take care of him." Lucius nodded in satisfaction upon seeing this. When he first met Thomas, he concluded that this boy must be no ordinary person. He also had been aware of the situation at Hogwarts. After all, it is not something that needs to be kept secret. As long as you investigate carefully, you will get the results soon. But when he first received the news, he was still shocked for a long time. Being born in Slytherin, he naturally knew that in order to tame these proud venomous snakes, one naturally needed to have extraordinary strength. Thomas had already achieved this in his first year. The chariot of the past had long since decayed, and now the Malfoy family had to make more comprehensive plans for the future. After all, it is not difficult to see from Draco's intimacy with Thomas that Thomas is really good to his younger brother Draco. Okay, if there's anything, can't we go back to the manor and talk about it? Thomas, come to your aunt. Knowing that you and Xiaolong are coming back today, Auntie has prepared a lot of delicious meals. Thank you so much, Auntie. I also want to taste your cooking skills. Draco always mentioned it to me at Hogwarts, which made me very greedy. Really? That's great. Let's go back to the manor together now. Narcissus smiled and was about to come over and hold Thomas's hand. Suddenly an unfriendly voice sounded. I'm afraid Mr. Black will not be able to visit Malfoy Manor for the time being. The person who spoke was an elegantly dressed old lady, followed by 7 or 8 men in black windbreakers who instantly surrounded the Malfoy family. Lucius frowned slightly, holding the snakehead scepter tightly in his hand, protecting Thomas and the other 2 behind him, and spoke in a bad tone. I'm afraid it's not up to you to decide where my nephew goes. After all, the Malfoy family still has some say in the British wizarding world. Chapter 41. I'm afraid this is not up to you, Lucius Malfoy. You should be thankful that I have no interest in doing anything to children. If it had been a few decades earlier, you would have been lying down by now. You're really arrogant. Lucius spoke in a cold tone, holding the snakehead scepter in his hand. This episode also attracted the attention of many wizards around. But no one stepped forward, because in their opinion, those who took the initiative to provoke the Malfoy family were either crazy or really powerful. After all, they have their own children standing next to them. For the sake of their children's safety, there is no need to get involved in this mess. The battle was about to break out, and at this moment, Thomas stepped forward. So, what do you want from me? Thomas. It's okay, uncle. They don't have any bad intentions, otherwise they should have taken action at the first opportunity. You are quite interesting, little guy. The old woman looked at the calm Thomas and couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. My name is Vita Rozier, and my master would like to meet you. Lucius frowned even more after hearing the name, Vita Rozier, the right-hand man of the first Dark Lord. This man was a well-known figure in that era. Unlike Voldemort who never left the British wizarding world, the radiation energy he radiated was worldwide. And her master, without a doubt, was also called a taboo name. Gellert Grindelwald, the first Dark Lord in the wizarding world. But shouldn't this person be imprisoned in Nurmengard Wizard Prison? No, no one can imprison the Dark Lord. This is the consensus of many wizards in the magical world around the world. After all, it is not difficult to see from Nurmengard Prison and Azkaban. One is a castle with special elves and servants to take care of it, while the other is an isolated island prison with dementors accompanying it every day. Although both are prisons, the treatment they provide is vastly different, so wizards around the world are more willing to believe it. The first Dark Lord was afraid of the White Lord, Albus Dumbledore, which was why he stayed in the tower for a long time. But what is the situation now? The first Dark Lord's right-hand man came to Thomas openly. Is he going to designate a successor or announce his comeback? No matter what the situation is, it cannot be ignored. This is the Malfoy family's way of business success. Then let's go. After all, I don't have the right to refuse, right? Thomas said as he was about to move forward, and Draco instantly became anxious when he saw this. Dad, we can't let them take my cousin away. Draco shouted anxiously, and Lucius showed an embarrassment on his face. Suddenly facing this giant, even the Malfoy family might not be able to survive. What's more, this matter doesn't seem to be as bad as imagined. I'm fine, Draco. I just wanted to go over and have a chat. I'll be back soon, right? Is that so? Of course, Draco, you still don't believe me. After Thomas finished speaking, he quickly walked to Rozier's side. Mrs. Rozier, come on, I'm ready. That's good. Rozier stretched out his hand to Thomas, and Thomas shook it without any hesitation. Displacement. The surrounding environment began to change rapidly until it stopped in the reception room of a castle. The second experience and the improvement of his physical fitness have made Thomas completely adapted to this spell. Owner. The old woman named Rokiel spoke respectfully to the platform, with a fanatical look in her eyes. Excuse me, Vita. It's not a problem. I can give everything for you, my master. The conversation between the two has undoubtedly revealed the identity of the man on the platform. Thomas raised his head and looked upwards. On the platform, an old man with snow-white hair was also looking at him with a smile. The old man wore a black suit with gold trim on the cuffs and collar, showing his taste and attention to detail. What caught Thomas's attention most was that the old man had a fair face and no beard, and had a pair of heterochromatic eyes consisting of blue and dark brown. Mr. Black, I'm honored that you accepted my invitation. Grindelwald said with a smile. I don't think I have the right to refuse. Of course you didn't, Mr. Black. Okay then, but I also have a question that I hope you can answer. No problem. I haven't talked to anyone in a long time. Please leave first, Vita. I want to talk to Mr. Black alone. I hope he doesn't find an old man like me boring. But master. Go down, Vita. Yes. Rozier looked at Thomas meaningfully, then left the castle hall. Mr. Black, now we can continue with our previous topic. Grindelwald said with a smile. Then my question is, what is the meaning of the famous first-generation Dark Lord inviting me, a young wizard who has just enrolled in Hogwarts for less than a year? I think you are not interested in the identity of the heir of the Black family. After Thomas finished speaking, he looked straight at Grindelwald on the podium, waiting for his answer. Of course, I came to you because I saw a prophecy, child. Grindelwald's voice suddenly sounded behind Thomas. Impossible. I clearly didn't see him take out his wand at any time. Was he casting spells without a wand? Many guesses flashed through Thomas's mind. But I am not the one in the prophecy, you should know that, or you should find Harry Potter, he is the boy who lived. Thomas turned around and spoke. It's a perfect brain-sealing technique, kid, but my prophecy is not what you said. What do you mean? The throne is surrounded by snakes, the feathered serpent is hissing, and everything will meet its final destination. The man with black hair and black eyes will wear the crown. The wizarding world will be unified. Grindelwald spoke his prophecy word for word. These words made Thomas break out in a cold sweat. Because of the prophecy spoken by Grindelwald, he had already seen all of this in the mirror of Arist. So, you think I'm the one in the prophecy? Thomas asked tentatively. Isn't it obvious, kid? I can see that you and I are of the same kind. I'm old now. I don't have the energy or the desire to do those things anymore. But you're still young, aren't you? Chapter 42. Seeing this, Thomas could only sigh helplessly, and then spoke. So you want to choose me as your successor? Oh, why do you think so, kid? Grindelwald looked at Thomas meaningfully and spoke. In front of the Kingdom Cross station, Madame Rozier revealed her identity in front of many wizards. The news could not be concealed. The news that the Black family's heir was taken away by the first Dark Lord may have been reported in the Daily Prophet by now. Many wizards around the world will begin to panic, fearing your return. Whether it's surveillance or the control of this castle, it will be greatly strengthened. Although this won't do anything for you. The former saints will begin to gather again after hearing the news of your return, just as the golden eagle flaps its wings, and the world will change accordingly. When Grindelwald heard these words, his pupils shrank unconsciously. It seems that you know a lot. Yes, I also know a lot about the White Bird Band. For example, Mrs. Rozier who came to greet me today, if I remember correctly, her code name should be Red-billed Blue Magpie. After Thomas finished speaking, he just looked at Grindelwald quietly. Grindelwald revealed a bitter smile and continued. Yet, who would have thought? A gang that was once a bad gang in the academy ended up with the power to change the global wizarding world. As Grindelwald spoke, he took out a lapel pin from his pocket and tossed it to Thomas. Thomas took the collar pin and looked at it carefully. It was painted with a white bird with its wings spread and holding the Deathly Hallows in its mouth. "I'm sorry, Mr. Grindelwald. At the moment, I have no intention of adding another blood curse to myself." Thomas shook his head and spoke, handing back the lapel pin that symbolized the white bird group. He was still young, the world was big, he didn't want to be restricted by anyone, and more importantly, it had been so long since the incident, someone should be here soon. The heir does not need to be planted with a blood curse. I can teach you how to control the blood curse. Grindelwald's voice rang in Thomas's ears. To be honest, Thomas was indeed tempted. There is a huge difference between the white bird group and the saints. If you have to say it, the saints are just ordinary workers, while everyone in the white bird group is a senior executive. Putting aside the issue of age, although Grindelwald failed, his subordinates and the wealth they controlled were not liquidated like Voldemort's Death Eaters. He has just returned to normal life and hidden himself among ordinary people. However, the connections and power contained underneath are extremely terrifying. If I could use all of this, it would definitely be a strong help. Just as Thomas was about to agree, the door suddenly opened and a silver-haired figure wearing a purple robe and a wizard hat suddenly appeared in the hall. "Master!" Two old figures holding wands rushed in at the door. They were Rosier and Johannes Wellis, the leader of the Kite Party, who was known as one of Grindelwald's lieutenants. In the original book, he died in 1981, but for the needs of the plot, he is still alive. P.S. There is no way. When I borrowed the camera before, someone kept complaining about the timeline issue. I can only say that I am just a movie lover and I am not so good at controlling some details. If someone insists on being stubborn, then you win. Don't be nervous, John and Vita, we are just old friends who came to chat with me. You can leave first. But, Lord. Rosier wanted to say something, but Wellis stopped her, shook his head, and left the hall. Seeing this, Rokiel could only glare at Dumbledore fiercely, then quickly left. In her opinion, if it weren't for the Master's so-called best friend, how could the Master retire at the peak of his career and imprison himself in this tower? My love and I both died in the High Tower, but you and your heart will live forever in the Midsummer. This may be a regret and tragedy in the hearts of many people. You're here, Albus. Grindelwald said softly. Dumbledore sighed helplessly upon seeing this, and then said. Gale, you shouldn't do this. Thomas is just a child. And because of your actions, the eyes of the whole world will be on him. So what? Even if I have to face the world as my enemy, you know I have never been afraid. You are my only constraint. Grindelwald did not say the last sentence, but just looked at Dumbledore quietly. For a moment, Dumbledore was a little overwhelmed and could only speak with a lack of confidence. But we can't interfere with children's dreams. Thomas wants to become a potion master. When Grindelwald saw this scene, a smile appeared on his face. Dumbledore still didn't understand, but he knew from the first moment he saw Thomas that this child was not the kind of person who was content with being ordinary. Snape, I really would. Let's not talk about this anymore. It's almost tea time. Do you want to join us, Albus? Gale, you know I'll get down to business. Grindelwald ignored Dumbledore's rebuttal and snapped his fingers lightly. The next second, a small round table appeared in front of the three people, with 3 wooden chairs corresponding to it. The house elves appeared in the hall carrying delicious desserts and black tea. Please sit down first. Grindelwald said as he pulled out a chair and motioned for Dumbledore to sit down. Dumbledore didn't say anything and sat down right away. The 2 top wizards were showing off their love for each other, but Thomas felt his stomach was a little bloated. It must be because he had eaten too many snacks on the train. He would buy less for Malfoy next time. Come, try the black tea. It's top quality. As Grindelwald spoke, he kept picking up sugar cubes and putting them into the cup of black tea. Thomas looked at the exaggerated sugar-adding technique and wondered why not just pour the black tea directly into the sugar jar. Thanks, Gale. Albus, you and I will never have to say these 2 words to each other. Dumbledore nodded, then took the cup of tea and drank it all in one gulp, with a satisfied smile on his face. Dumbledore was probably in a better mood because he enjoyed the delicious black tea. He looked at Thomas with a smile and spoke. Thomas, you should eat too. The house elves here in Gellert are very good at making pastries. Ah, yes, headmaster. As Thomas spoke, he picked up a small piece of exquisite cake and placed it in front of him. Chapter 43. The cake has a chic appearance with a golden top and slightly charred edges. Its mouth-watering appearance, coupled with the carefully decorated fruits and cream, makes people happy just by looking at it. Thomas looked at the excellent-looking cake in front of him and thought that the taste would certainly not be that bad, so he immediately cut off a piece and put it into his mouth. The next second, he regretted it. The soft taste, accompanied by a greasy sweetness, made him feel like he had swallowed a whole bag of sugar cubes in one bite. Is it really okay for elderly people to eat such sweet food? Thomas thought so and turned to look at the two brothers who were flirting with each other. Well, this is the magical world. Dumbledore ate with a smile, while Grindelwald carefully cleaned the food residue from the corners of his mouth with a handkerchief. Soon, the whole table of desserts was finished by Dumbledore, the old bee, and he drank no less than 4 cups of that extremely exaggerated black tea. Hey, Thomas, why don't you eat the cake? Is it not to your liking? No, headmaster, it's just that I ate too much on the train earlier. Yes, Malfoy insisted on snacks and bought a lot, so in order not to waste anything, I ate it all. Dumbledore nodded. Well, eating too much is really not good. There's nothing else to do now, Gellert. I'll take Thomas back with me. As Dumbledore spoke, he was about to take Thomas's hand and prepare to apparate. But he was stopped by Grindelwald. Gale, Thomas is my student. Dumbledore said somewhat annoyed. I know, Albus, but you don't wait to take this child away just yet. Why? Because of a prophecy, my prophecy. What, Gale, when did this happen, this prophecy? Dumbledore said with a little surprise that Grindelwald had only made predictions twice in his life, and each of these 2 predictions was accompanied by earth-shaking events. The first prophecy came when Grindelwald was 16 years old. He predicted that he would meet a red-haired, blue-eyed wizard and die because of him, and then he met Dumbledore. Although he is not dead yet, no one can predict what will happen in the near future. The blood of innocent lives will stain his hands for the first time. This is the second prophecy. It is from this time that he confirms his path to becoming a king, and becomes a witch party and a saint. And this third prophecy will definitely lead to something big that will shock the wizarding world, which cannot but make Dumbledore concerned. And Grindelwald did not keep anyone in suspense and told everyone what he had predicted. The throne is surrounded by snakes, the feathered serpent is hissing, and everything will meet its final destination. The man with black hair and black eyes will wear the crown. The wizarding world would be unified. So, your prediction is for Thomas. Dumbledore couldn't help but frown. Thomas was only a first year, but he already controlled the entire Slytherin. As for the hissing of the feathered serpent, he believed that it was a manifestation of the mutual transformation of objects, or it could be Thomas's patronus charm or animagus. The black hair and black eyes represent the pure bloodline of the Black family. As for the unification of the wizarding world, there has never been any unification without bloodshed in history, from ancient times to the present. That's right, this child will be my heir, and I will be his godfather. Grindelwald answered without hesitation. So, what do you think, Thomas? Dumbledore turned to look at the boy sitting next to him and asked, while Grindelwald also turned and looked at him silently. And his next answer will definitely change the entire landscape of the wizarding world. Whether he wants it or not, the world will change dramatically because of him. Principal Dumbledore, I think that simply running away will not change anything. The only one who can truly change their destiny is themselves. Since it is destined to be so, I am willing to agree to Mr. Grindelwald's request. I would like to be his godson. No one can decide what will happen in the future, but I can guarantee that I will not regret the choice I made today. As Thomas finished speaking, the corners of Grindelwald's mouth rose slightly. Dumbledore's face looked a little ugly, but he didn't know what to say. He had said before that children can choose their own paths. If he came out to refute it now, he would be slapping himself in the face. However, he soon felt relieved. The prophecy had not yet come true, the dust had not yet settled, and everything could turn around. Thomas was different from Tom, and he had friends. He knew what friendship felt like, and even though he was sitting on the throne, there were still many differences between a good king and an evil king. Albus, if you have something to say, you may leave first. My godson and I still have a lot to talk about. Leave? Why should I leave, Gale? You are driving me away. Dumbledore said somewhat unhappily. Oh, how could that be, Albus? I would never kick you out, but as the headmaster of Hogwarts, you will probably have a lot of things to deal with. The kids are on winter break, and I don't have anything to do. Thomas is my student, and I can't bear to see you corrupt him, so I have to stay here and keep an eye on you. That's certainly the best thing to do, Albus. Of course I welcome you, but the beds in the castle don't seem to be enough. Why not? We can just squeeze in. It's not like we haven't lived together before. Oh, since this is your choice, I naturally won't say anything more. Thomas looked at the Godfather in front of him, whose face already had a look of success, and then looked at the angry headmaster Dumbledore beside him. He didn't know what to say for a moment. If one is willing to fight, the other is willing to be beaten. The two people who were talking about teaching and supervision in the previous second drove Thomas, an important person, out of the hall in the next second and became bored. Rocher and Wellis, who had been waiting outside the door, came over immediately. Boy, why are you the only one out? Yes, son. Thomas looked at the anxious expressions of the two old men in front of him and didn't know what to say for a moment. Could he tell them that your master is flirting with my principal in there? The Godfather has something important to discuss with Headmaster Dumbledore, so let me come out first. What? The master accepted you as his godson. How is that possible? Rokiel looked at Thomas in front of him and said in disbelief. You are so rude, Rosier. Since it is the master's order, we should obey it. As well as spoke, he gave Thomas a standard wizard salute. Because in his opinion, Grindelwald's vision is definitely not bad. Now that the successor has been decided, the saints who have been silent for a long time will naturally come out and stretch their muscles. All of this is for the greater good. Chapter 44. Different from the peaceful situation in the castle, the magic world outside is now in complete chaos. The appearance of Vita Rozier, the first Dark Lord, the right-hand man of the witch party, known as the Red-Billed Blue Magpie, was undoubtedly a shot in the arm for the saints. The Daily Prophet even put this scene on the headlines, with just one picture taking up most of the newspaper. The saints who were originally quiet and ordinary stopped their work, walked onto the street, raised their magic wands, and shot the emblem that symbolized greatness into the sky. The top leaders of the ministries of magic in various countries were extremely worried and had to constantly summon their subordinates to hold one meeting after another. The one who had the most headache was Cornelius Fudge, whose desk was already filled with letters from ministries of magic around the world. Everyone was urging him to get Dumbledore out of the way. The only one who can subdue the Dark Lord is the White Lord. This is the idea of the entire Ministry of Magic and even many wizards. To be honest, it was pure luck that he got to his current position. Although he usually hated Dumbledore, but when the critical moment came, he had to accept his fate and only Dumbledore could save this crisis. But where is Dumbledore? An old wizard who was eating dessert suddenly sneezed, and then tightened his woolen socks on his feet. In addition to Vita Rozier, many wizards also noticed this key point. That is the little wizard with black hair and black eyes, the current heir of the Black family, Thomas Black. The more people explored, the more surprised they became. As a first-year wizard, he challenged 16 senior wizards and won in a crushing manner. He broke the Quidditch record and caught the golden snitch under 140 points of terrifying suppression. Defeated the giant alone. Oh, Merlin's black lace triangle panties, this turned out not to be real. Everyone looked at the documents in their hands in disbelief, but ultimately had to acknowledge the records. A powerful being is being born, and people don't know whether he is a demon or a holy king. Panic, joy, surprise, disbelief, all kinds of emotions intertwined among the wizard group. The ones who are panicking are the senior officials of the Ministry of Magic, or the old nobles in the country. They are afraid of Thomas's rise and afraid that he will change the original order. Those who were happy were the members of the witch party and some new nobles. They saw the hope and flame of rise. The birth of a king often represented the rise of a new family. As long as they can seize the opportunity, they can completely change the current situation. Feelings of surprise and disbelief permeated among some ordinary wizards, most of whom were of the new generation and had not experienced the period of Grindelwald's rule. They were amazed at Thomas's excellence, but also criticized him with a critical eye, deciding that those young wizards were exaggerating a bit. But when the real facts were placed before them, they had no choice but to believe it. Wow, cousin, that's so cool! Draco said excitedly while holding the Daily Prophet in his hand. Lucius also showed a satisfied smile on his face. Although he had not experienced Grindelwald's reign, he knew the power and terror of the first Dark Lord. Under the current circumstances, the one who might be resurrected at any time seems to be in poor condition. Deep in the forbidden forest, a noseless man who was holding a unicorn's throat couldn't help but frown. He didn't know why, but he always felt that someone was thinking about him just now. The next second, he shook his head and put the matter behind him. Are you kidding? He is Voldemort. It is normal for wizards to be afraid of him. Instead of thinking about these nonsense, you might as well seize the time and suck some more unicorn blood. Since Hagrid's Norbert was sent away, the searches in the Forbidden Forest have become more frequent recently. He was almost discovered many times, and now he is a little nervous after sucking a mouthful of blood. No, he has to speed up, it will be bad if he is discovered. This kind of life lasted for about 3 days. Dumbledore suddenly appeared and accepted an interview with the Daily Prophet, and openly accepted Thomas Black as his godson. This move caused another sensation in the magic world. But this move also put the worries of senior officials of the Ministry of Magic in many countries at ease. After all, everyone knows that Dumbledore doesn't like fighting, loves peace, hates power struggles, and never asks about the Ministry of Magic. Otherwise, how could such a mediocre person take charge of the British Ministry of Magic? Don't you think so, Fudge? Everyone also believed that with the guidance of such a great White Lord, Thomas Blake would definitely be on the right track. But they had no idea what was happening in the castle of Nurmengard. Old Bee and Grindelwald are living a sweet life together. Wellis and Rozier watched Thomas perform magic. Merlin's lace stockings, how is this possible? I must be blind. Wellis said in disbelief. No, we are both blind. Rochelle replied blankly. If there is a word to describe Thomas now, it is, completely crazy. Thomas was seen waving his magic wand continuously, chanting the spell of chewing Big Melon continuously from his mouth, and the inky light seemed to be endless and hit the mosquitoes nearby. That's right, eating big melons can kill mosquitoes, can you believe it? You know the additional conditions of the killing curse. It tears apart the soul of the caster and brings the person's emotions into darkness. Originally, Thomas suggested that the house elves catch some mosquitoes for practicing spells, but Wellis and Rozier didn't take it too seriously. After all, in their eyes, no matter how talented Thomas is, that is a matter for the future. Currently, he is just a first-grade kid. How many spells can be practiced? It was not until they saw this scene that they regretted their decision. Where the hell did this dad come from? Just by looking at the dark green light of his wand, they couldn't imagine how many lives had died at Thomas's hands. It is well known that the color of the melon will gradually darken as the number of enemies killed increases. As the elders of the White Bird group and the top figures of the 12 saints, they will naturally be subject to this curse. But the color they released was only a little darker than turquoise. There were people there who were already dark green, and the color kept getting darker and never stopped. This kid is really not afraid of going crazy. Right. Chapter 45. Just as the two of them were staring at each other in fascination, Thomas suddenly turned around, raised his head, and showed a brilliant smile with 8 teeth. Ah! X22 screams suddenly sounded. Rozier and Wellis were frightened and stepped back. They took out their wands and pointed them at Thomas until their bodies were against the wall. Mrs. Rozier, Mr. Wellis, what are you doing? Thomas looked at the two people who were shaking non-stop and asked doubtfully. He thought his smile should be very kind. Thomas thought that he was not bad looking, otherwise he would not have attracted so many female classmates at Hogwarts. However, they were all driven away by Daphne. But Thomas didn't care. What does a child know about love? Instead of dealing with these nonsense things, it is better to spend more time practicing magic spells. This is the right way. Therefore, Thomas was still very grateful for Daphne's actions. He also vaguely remembered an incident not long ago when a senior from Ravenclaw came to make desserts for him. Although her dessert-making skills were indeed good, Thomas praised her generously after eating the dessert. So much so that the senior student misunderstood something and started behaving crazily. It was thanks to Daphne's intervention that the crisis was resolved, otherwise I would have wasted time practicing spells. But whenever Thomas asked about it afterwards, Daphne would always blush and brush it off. Thomas didn't take it to heart. If she didn't say anything, he wouldn't ask. Good friends should have this kind of trust, right? Back to the present, Thomas looked at the two frightened people in confusion, and seemed to understand something. Perhaps due to the atmosphere in Nurmengard and the magic books that his godfather constantly bestowed upon him, Thomas began to take it for granted that this was the way saints behaved. This led him to start practicing black magic without any worries, but in fact, what he did was not that exaggerated. Well, it is indeed a little bit exaggerated. But he thought that the two senior executives of the Whitebird Group, who had seen so many storms, should not make such a fuss. At this time, Wellis and Raquel also reacted, and a blush appeared on their old faces. They were actually scared by a little kid. They are really old. But then again, if a person who keeps releasing the melon-eating spell non-stop stands in front of you, with the dark green light coming out of his wand, and then turns around and smiles at you like this, everyone would be scared. Ahem, Master Thomas, I wonder what you were going to tell us to do just now. In order to break the awkwardness, Wellis coughed twice and asked first. It's like this, Mr. Wellis. I don't have enough bugs, so I want the house elf to help me catch more. Oh, so that's how it is. Of course, that's fine, Master Thomas. It's not a problem at all. Wellis replied hastily, and soon the house elves of Nurmengard quickly placed fresh mosquitoes in front of Thomas, and considerately cast a magic shield to prevent the bugs from escaping. On the other side, the old bee was happily eating a piece of cream cake served by Grindelwald. At this moment, he suddenly saw a magic notebook on the bedside. For some reason, he felt that it was becoming more and more familiar the more he read, until he walked up and opened the cover of the notebook. Merlin, Gale, what notes did you give to that kid Thomas 3 days ago? Potions refining, not Albus. Did you say that child's dream is to become a potions master? I have always supported you. Grindelwald looked at Dumbledore, who had a serious face, and said with confusion. Really, Gale? The notes you gave Thomas are about potions refining. Can you tell me what this is? As Dumbledore spoke, he angrily threw the notes in front of Grindelwald. Grindelwald was also confused at the moment. He didn't understand what had happened. Albus, who was so sweet just a second ago, suddenly became furious. Until he opened the notebook on the ground. Damn it! How could this happen? This book is about potions distillation, so what is the book in my godson's hand? Grindelwald had a good memory and instantly recalled the scene from 3 days ago. At that time, he was spending a sweet time with Albus, and then Thomas suddenly pushed the door open and said that he wanted to learn something. It was at this moment that he remembered the dream Albus had mentioned earlier. He happened to have such a book on hand, so he took it out from the bedside table and threw it to Thomas, hoping that his godson would be more sensible and stop disturbing his hard-working old godfather. He could still vaguely recall Thomas's look of disbelief at that time. Just as Thomas was about to ask, he immediately interrupted Thomas and asked him to leave. So, you gave Thomas a notebook of some kind? Dumbledore said angrily. This is just an ordinary notebook. And with John and Vita watching over it, nothing will go wrong. Oh, forget it. I'll go take a look first. Just have some more dessert first, and you'll be fine. Grindelwald said as he stood up from the bed, put on his boots, and quickly ran out of the room. After Dumbledore saw this scene, his sixth sense told him that this matter would definitely not be simple. Sure enough, when he chased downstairs, he saw Grindelwald and the other two standing by with a look of shock on their faces, watching Thomas constantly using the eating a big melon method on the mosquito. Coupled with the dark green light, Dumbledore completely exploded. Gellert. What's wrong, Albus? Grindelwald glanced around, very flustered. He knew that Dumbledore was really angry, otherwise he would not have called him Gellert. After all, they had always used the affectionate nickname, Gale. Godfather, when did you come? When Thomas heard Dumbledore's voice, he hurriedly put away his wand with a guilty conscience and bowed. Thomas, can you let me see the book that Gellert gave you? Of course, Godfather. Thomas adhered to the principle of a friend's death is better than my own death and handed the notes in his hand to Dumbledore without any hesitation. To be honest, he was a little reluctant to part with it, because the records in this notebook were much better than those in Voldemort's, and he benefited a lot from it. Dumbledore took the notebook and saw the 5 big words on it. Dark Magic Mastery. Chapter 46. So, Gellert, what is this? As Dumbledore spoke, he threw the book Mastering the Dark Arts in front of Grindelwald. Albus, you need to listen to my explanation. Yes, you should listen to my explanation. Grindelwald hurriedly explained, talking about the fond memories of when they were young. He kept complaining about the loneliness of living in the tower for a long time, and occasionally complained that Dumbledore never came to see him. Slowly, Dumbledore's expression softened, but... The next second, Dumbledore flashed and quickly came to Thomas's side. He grabbed Thomas's arm and began to explore. After a moment, he let out a deep breath of relief. Fortunately, it's not too late and no one discovered that their souls had been torn apart. Thomas, learning the dark arts is an extremely dangerous act. I hope you won't try this again. Fortunately, I discovered it early this time, otherwise the consequences would be absolutely disastrous. You are only in your first year, and the defense against the dark arts class has just started. You don't understand how terrible this is. The reason why black magic is called black magic is not because of its great power, but because it can bewitch the mind of the wizard and turn him into a madman who only knows how to kill. So this is definitely not something that a first-year wizard like you can learn. Dumbledore said with a serious expression. Grindelwald and the other two, thank you for being implied again. Thomas decided to expose his talent for dark magic, and he had his own plans for doing so. If you succeed, you can pave the way for the future. If you fail, you can just drop out of Hogwarts and go to Durmstrang Academy of Magic in Northern Europe. Anyway, they don't oppose the dark magic. This was a huge gamble, and Thomas couldn't guarantee how Dumbledore would react after knowing it, but he believed that Grindelwald would protect him. There was no reason, he just had this feeling. Even if Grindelwald killed his own relatives for the sake of justice, he could only consider himself unlucky. Thomas thought of everything and immediately looked at Dumbledore and spoke. But, Godfather, I don't think I've been affected. Thomas once again performed the Akonda melon-eating technique in front of everyone. The dark green light instantly poured out from the tip of the wand and hit the mosquito directly. The mosquitoes that were flying around in the last second turned into a pile of ashes and dissipated in the air in the next second. This scene made Dumbledore and Grindelwald frown quickly. They arrived late and only saw the color coming out of the wand, but did not hear the spell recited by Thomas. The two thought it was just the special color of Thomas's spell, but now, they realized the seriousness of the matter. Grindelwald swallowed his saliva unconsciously. As the first Dark Lord, he had killed countless people in order to overthrow the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy. But its color is only dark green. But now, what is this dark green? The godson that I adopted was actually a big devil, so he should be mentally ill and a madman now. Why does it look like nothing happened? No, the biggest thing for a person is to have nothing to do. As Grindelwald thought about it, he grabbed Thomas's other arm and began to examine it. After a while, a strange expression appeared on his face. It's actually okay, this is Merlin. Oh, that prophecy. Dumbledore seemed to have thought of this as well. The two looked at each other and a bold idea emerged in their minds. In fact, it is not surprising to have this idea. When they were young, the two of them studied the Deathly Hallows together, but it was definitely not as crazy as this time. In the following time, Thomas also confirmed their guesses. No matter what kind of black magic it is, Thomas can learn it immediately and does not suffer any negative effects. He is simply a natural Dark Lord. Many times, Dumbledore couldn't help but have the idea of killing his own relatives for the sake of justice, but every time he saw Thomas's serious look and gentle smile, his heart would soften. Thomas Blake, his and Gale's godson. After seeing Thomas's amazing talent and humble character, Grindelwald often praised Thomas. Because of Thomas Black, his and Albus godson. The two elderly men, who were over 100 years old and had no children, gradually and completely accepted Thomas. Thomas also became a person they often mentioned and shared their feelings about. Although they usually started with Thomas, the rest was filled with their sweet memories and actions. Thomas, so I am also a part of your play, right? The time passed quickly, and the time for school to start at Hogwarts soon arrived, along with the arrival of Christmas. When it comes to Christmas, Hogwarts has two options for its students. The first is to continue taking a break, which usually lasts about 2 weeks, from Christmas to New Year's Day. The second option is to choose to return to school early. Originally, Thomas planned to wait until school officially started before going back. After all, if I go back now, I will just face a bunch of little brats every day, and there will be no classes. It's not as fun as practicing black magic every day here and grinding the progress bar. To Thomas, the so-called aristocratic blood and upbringing are all bullshit. Only when one has strong personal strength can one have enough say. The two generations of Dark Lords are the best examples. The first generation Dark Lord Grindelwald also came from a pure-blood family, but he was not one of the top nobles. Among all the nobles, the Grindelwald family was at most middle class. However, in the face of Grindelwald's powerful strength, who would underestimate this family? There are also many powerful aristocratic families among the saints who have joined them. The second-generation Dark Lord Voldemort, his mother belonged to the Gaunt family, but his father was a Muggle, at most he could be considered a half-blood. With such a background, it was impossible for any top noble to be interested in him. But even so, he still used his powerful strength and the slogan of pure blood supremacy to gather a large group of Death Eaters. Therefore, instead of just relying on the merits of your ancestors to eat and wait for death, it is better to become a pioneer in the pursuit of glory. He wanted people who heard the name Black in the future to think of him, Thomas Black, instead of the ancestor of the Black family. Chapter 47. Just as Dumbledore and Grindelwald in the tower room were preparing to start today's afternoon tea, a sharp phoenix cry was heard, followed by a fiery red figure flying in from the window. The two of them quickly recognized the identity of the visitor. It was Dumbledore's phoenix, Fawkes. Fawkes circled the table twice, then dropped the letter from his claws into Dumbledore's hands. Dumbledore then put down his knife and fork and opened the letter. "What's wrong, Albus? Has something happened? Do you need me to help?" Grindelwald asked in confusion. "It's a little troublesome, but I can handle it. Gale, I have to take Thomas back to Hogwarts first," Dumbledore said with some disappointment. To be honest, he really did miss the time he had with Grindelwald. But Hagrid's letter mentioned that the deaths of unicorns were becoming more and more frequent, which made him realize that the mouse was about to take the bait. The stage had been set up, and as the chief director, he had to return to take charge. "Is that so? Is it urgent? If not, let's have dinner first." "Okay." With Dumbledore's nod, the atmosphere returned to the pink bubble-filled one they had before. The two of them kept silent about the letter and immersed themselves in the wonderful atmosphere. At dinner, Thomas also saw what was on their minds. As someone who had learned the dark arts, he naturally had to master the skill of telepathy. It is also because of the practicality of this skill that the level of his skill is not low. In addition, given the environment he was originally in, he is also very skilled in observing people's words and expressions, so he can barely judge this from the subtle emotions between the two. He probably knew that the main storyline was about to begin. He also understands that couples in love are reluctant to be forced to separate. "Godfathers, I am full. Don't you want to eat a little more?" "Thomas, you are growing up now," Dumbledore said with concern. "No, Godfather, I'm full." Thomas stood up and bowed slightly to the two of them, then quickly left the hall, leaving this space to the two of them. Thomas ran into the room and took out several gift boxes from the ring. These were the Christmas gifts he asked Kreaker to prepare. He had originally planned to wait until Christmas Day to give these away, but when he thought about the special circumstances now, he had no choice but to take them out first. Of course, as for Kreach, Thomas gave her a brand new pillowcase right away. Kreaker was so frightened that he kept kowtowing, and under the premise that Thomas strictly promised not to abandon it, Kreaker happily accepted the gift. Boom boom boom. "Mr. Wellis, Mrs. Rozier, may I come in?" "Of course, Master Thomas." "Cats." As the sound of a door opening was heard, the figures of Wellis and the other man slowly came into Thomas's sight. From the food on the table that has not been finished, you can tell that they are eating now. As for why they didn't dine together, Thomas had asked this question before. In the words of Wellis and others, it is a difference in status. "Young Master Thomas, what are you doing?" Wellis asked curiously, because the two gift boxes in Thomas's hands were too conspicuous. "This is a gift for you." "This is for you, Mr. Wellis." Thomas handed the rectangular box in his hand to Wellis. It was a black tie with a red edge, on which a cleaning magic had been cast. In Thomas's opinion, a tie was absolutely indispensable for such an old gentleman. "And this gift, it's for you, Mrs. Rozier." As Thomas spoke, he handed a smaller gift box to Rozier. Inside was a brooch engraved with a red-billed blue magpie. It was a decorative item, but it also fit her code name. "If you don't mind, you two can open them and take a look. This is my first time giving someone a Christmas present, so I'm afraid I won't do a good job." "This is a lie, how could that be, Master Thomas? We are very happy as long as you have this kind of thought for us. Besides, we haven't prepared your gift yet. We are so ashamed." Wellis said somewhat embarrassedly, and Mrs. Rozier beside him nodded. Thomas smiled and shook his head, then spoke. It's okay, you two. Please don't take it to heart. After all, we will spend a lot of time together in the future. Please take a look at the gifts I prepared first. The two wanted to say something, but after hearing what Thomas said, they stopped being pretentious and opened the gift boxes in their hands. Just as Thomas said, as Grindelwald's godson and successor, future saints would certainly be handed over to Thomas. We are all family, and it would be bad if we continue to be hesitant. Oh my god, perfect color combination, you have really good taste, Master Thomas. As Verlacy spoke, he took off the tie around his neck and changed it. It was obvious that he was very satisfied with Thomas's gift. Thomas, I like your gift, too. Thank you. Rozier looked at the red-billed blue magpie brooch in the box with a smile on her face. It was obvious that she was very satisfied with Thomas's gift. Glad you guys, as long as you like it, I won't disturb your meal for now. Thomas said as he left the room, and was immediately met by Dumbledore who was coming towards him. We should go, Thomas. Dumbledore said with a smile. Of course, Godfather, wait a moment, this is for you. Thomas said as he took out a gift box from the ring and handed it to Dumbledore. This is Christmas present, Godfather. With this you will never have to worry about running out of woolen socks. Thomas said with a smile. Dumbledore felt warm in his heart after hearing what Thomas said. He smiled, reached out his hand and ruffled Thomas's black hair. Thank you so much, Thomas. I have also prepared your Christmas present for you, so look forward to it. Dumbledore said, winking playfully. I will be looking forward to it, Godfather. So are we going back to Hogwarts now? Well, yes, I'll go back now. Of course, if you want to go see your other godfather now, that's fine too. Dumbledore said softly. No need, Godfather. I have already prepared a gift for Godfather Grindelwald. Let's go back to Hogwarts first. After all, you are so anxious, I guess you must have encountered some trouble. Then you better hurry up. Certainly. Thomas said as he grabbed Dumbledore's outstretched hand. Fawkes flew out of nowhere and landed on Dumbledore's shoulder. The next second, a red light enveloped the two of them. It was Fawkes's shadow. P.S. A little tip, the Phoenix, like the house elves, can use disapparate. Chapter 48. Grindelwald, sitting alone in the reception room, sighed and walked towards the tower. Without Dumbledore's company, he couldn't help feeling lonely in his heart. He could have endured the darkness, if only he had never seen the light. Grindelwald opened the door of the tower room and began to pick up the books that had been scattered before, all the way to the bedside. A gold-wrapped jewelry box suddenly caught his eye. There was a note left on the side of the jewelry box. Merry Christmas, Godfather. Thomas Blake. A warm current instantly filled Grindelwald's heart. Ever since he trapped himself in the tower, he had severed ties with all his subordinates, not to mention things like gifts. He reached out and opened the gift box, and a golden eagle brooch with wings spread out lay quietly in the box. On the other hand, a small number of students in Hogwarts School have already returned to school. Although there are not many of them, the school seems full of vitality and not deserted. Many students, upon seeing Dumbledore and Thomas, came forward to greet them enthusiastically, and Dumbledore and Thomas smiled and nodded in response. After all, with the popularity of the Daily Prophet some time ago, it is impossible that there are still wizards who don't know the identities of these two. The two then walked together for a while before parting ways. Dumbledore had his own things to deal with, while Thomas returned to his dormitory. As soon as he opened the door, Thomas saw the piles of gift boxes. Because the Black Mansion is hidden, most wizards simply send their gifts directly to Hogwarts. Thomas took a quick look and found that some were sent by students, while others were from nobles and powerful wizards who were trying to curry favor with him. Most of the items are precious magical materials and accessories. After taking a look at these things, Thomas put them all into the ring without worrying about them. The Black family would not be short of money, jewelry, and magic materials. He doesn't need to take these wizards' goodwill seriously at all. Then the rest are the gifts from friends. The first gift came from Harley, a pair of boots. Thomas tried them on his feet and found they fit perfectly and were quite comfortable to wear. Ronald's gift was some candies from the magical world. Judging from the packaging, it must have been a very ruthless gift. As for Hermione's gift, it was some notes on potions, with important information specially marked on them with a red pen. Although it was nothing to Thomas who had the Half-Blood Prince's notes, it was also a token of Hermione's thoughtfulness, and Thomas felt warm inside. The Weasley twins gave away a group of new prank props. As new products in the store, they sold very well and were widely praised by a large number of wizards. Draco's gift was a manual on snake breeding in a small bag cast with a traceless magic. Thomas opened it and took a look. He quickly realized that the bag was mostly filled with some materials that were very beneficial to snakes and were quite expensive. It seemed that Cucurkin was in for a treat. The last one was a gift from Daphne, a ring that also had the function of storing things, and its shape was a python surrounding an emerald in the middle. Thomas was also very satisfied with this gift. "Thomas, you're here early too." A surprised voice suddenly sounded. Thomas put down the spoon in his hand and looked up. It was Ronald and Harley. Thomas smiled at the two of them and pointed to an empty seat next to them, indicating that they could come and sit down. Since most of the students are still on vacation, there are a lot of empty seats in the cafeteria and no one will deliberately care about this. "By the way, Thomas, I have to thank you very much, otherwise I don't know how long I will have to use my shabby wand." Ronald, who had just sat down, excitedly took out the new wand he had bought before and showed it off. It was obvious that he was particularly fond of his new wand. "You're welcome, Ronald. I like your gift, too," Thomas said with a smile. "Really? I still have some over there. I'll get it for you right away." Ronald was about to stand up, but was held down by Harley. "Ronald, have you forgotten what we talked about before?" "Oh, yes." Ronald quickly sat up straight and started talking. "Thomas, Hogwarts is going to be in big trouble." "Oh? What's the big trouble? Why don't you tell me about it?" Ronald turned his head and looked at Harry, indicating that he should speak first. "Just yesterday, I received an invisibility cloak. With the idea of giving it a try, I put it on and went for a night tour. But Thomas, you know what I saw? Professor Snape is with Professor Quirrell. Although we were quite far away, I could see the expressions on their faces. They were definitely not talking about anything good. It feels like Professor Snape is threatening Professor Quirrell or something." "So you think so?" "Professor Quirrell's evil deeds were discovered by Professor Snape, so Professor Snape is warning him." X2 Harley and Ronald said in unison. Thomas also nodded. It seemed that Harry, dressed as a woman, had indeed brought about a great change in Snape, otherwise Harry and the others would not have such a good impression of Snape. If it happened in the original book, the next step would probably be Snape preparing to steal the Philosopher's Stone. "So, what are you going to do?" "You know, the Philosopher's Stone is guarded by a three-headed dog, and you have seen the size of that three-headed dog. Ordinary wizards would never dare to get close to it." Harry and Ronald nodded, agreeing with Thomas's statement. After all, judging from the size of the three-headed dog, it would not be a big problem to kill a group of 3 in one bite. But the next second, Thomas suddenly changed the subject and continued. "However, everything has its weaknesses. Perhaps you can ask Hagrid. After all, he is very knowledgeable about magical creatures. He might know the weakness of the three-headed dog." "Yes, we should ask Hagrid." After hearing the news, Harley and Ronald couldn't stay for even a second and hurried to Hagrid's cabin. But not long after, just as Thomas was about to get up and go back to his room, Harry and the other two ran back in panic. "Oh no, Thomas, oh no. Ahem, water, give me some saliva first," Harley and Ronald said with red faces and heavy breathing. Chapter 49. Thomas picked up the kettle from the table and poured a glass of pumpkin juice for each of them. The two of them hurriedly took the cups and drank from them. "Ah! It feels so good. I feel alive." Harry and the other two sighed, and then each of them pulled Thomas out. "Wait, Harry, Ronald, what are you doing?" Thomas broke free from the two and said in confusion that this was the task of the trio and he didn't want to get involved as a babysitter. In other words, Voldemort was simply unable to eat the Philosopher's Stone from the magic mirror. The only one who could really do that was Harry. Dumbledore had already set the stage for the savior, and he didn't want to join in the fun at all. "Oh, go away, Thomas, there's no time to explain." "That's right, let's go over there first." As the words fell, Harley and Ronald carried Thomas on each side and rushed to the third floor. To be honest, Thomas felt a little regretful for moving the plot forward. "Hermione, where are you? Come back soon." Hermione was hanging the Christmas tree at home with a frown on her face. For some reason, she felt like someone was calling her. After a while, the three of them arrived at the door of the secret room, and an elegant piece of music came into their ears. "Oh no, we're too late," Harry said anxiously, letting go of Thomas's arm and rushing into the room first, followed closely by Ronald. "I have to say, as expected of a Gryffindor, he is brave, reckless." Thomas saw this and could only sigh helplessly, then quickly followed. In this way, a three-person team consisting of 2 Gryffindors and 1 Slytherin was formed. Inside the room, the three-headed dog closed its eyes and snored loudly, while the harp beside it continued to produce beautiful music. Thomas also didn't expect that Voldemort would be so bold. In the original book, it happened late at night, but now he dared to steal in broad daylight. He really didn't care about the consequences. But Thomas didn't know that Voldemort insisted on controlling Quirrell's body to teach the defense against the dark arts class. His vitality was draining away at a rapid pace, to the point where even if he wanted to absorb more unicorn blood, it would not be able to replenish it. In the end, he had no choice but to take risky measures and fight hard. "It's the trapdoor, Thomas. It's right under the three-headed dog," Harley whispered. Thomas nodded, then took out his wand, pointed it at the three-headed dog's paw and chanted, "Wingardium Leviosa." Levitation spell. An invisible buoyancy slowly lifted the three-headed dog's paws, revealing the trapdoor underneath. "Allaho hole open." As Thomas finished his words, the restraint of the trapdoor completely disappeared. "Then let's go, you two." Thomas stepped forward, pulled open the trapdoor, and jumped down first. "Harry, are we just going to jump down?" Ronald said hesitantly. "What do you think, Ronald?" Thomas has already jumped. As soon as Harry finished speaking, he suddenly jumped into the trapdoor. Ronald wanted to hesitate, but the three-headed dog helped him make the choice. A large pool of mucus dripped onto his body. "Wow, what is this, so evil?" As Ronald spoke, he tried to look up to see the source of the slime, until he saw 3 pairs of eyes that were as big as copper bells. "Then I'll leave." Roar. X3. Damn, what is this? As soon as Ronald escaped from the dog's mouth, he was tied up by countless branches. "Ronald, don't be nervous. Thomas just told me that this is the Devil's Vine. As long as you relax your body, it will automatically let go of you," Harley below said loudly. But Ronald didn't show any sign of relaxing. Instead, he struggled more and more violently. It seemed that Ronald was about to suffocate in the next second under the entanglement of the vines. "Liwo." As Thomas chanted the spell, dark green flames instantly condensed into a fire dragon, roaring towards the devil vine and burning it clean in an instant. P.S. Grindelwald's is blue, Voldemort's is yellow, so my dark green flame should be very reasonable. Without the vines to restrain him, Ronald fell down on his butt. "Cool." Ronald sighed before he could even feel the pain in his butt. The powerful pressure from the huge fire dragon that just swam past his side made it impossible for him to escape from it. "Are you okay, Ronald?" Harley pulled Ronald up from the ground with concern. "It's okay, thanks Harry and Thomas." Ronald nodded and spoke. The three continued to walk inside, and soon their view became wider. Countless densely packed keys with wings appeared in front of them, with a tattered broom next to them. Not far away, there is a tightly closed door. "It looks like we have to open the door of the room before we can move on." Harry thought for a moment and then spoke. "This is all a piece of cake, just leave it to me." Ronald took out his new wand from his wizard robe. He couldn't wait to test the power of his new wand. Ronald struck a pose that he thought looked handsome, pointed his wand at the door lock, and began to chant. "Allaho hole open." After a moment, there was no response from the door. "Oh, that's not right, how could it be useless?" Ronald frowned and looked at his new wand again, still not understanding what he had done wrong. Thomas seemed to have pronounced it in the same way before. "Ronald, your pronunciation is correct, but if you want to pass through this door, you can't just use the door opening spell. Keys and broomsticks, there must be some connection between the two." Harry, as the Gryffindor seeker, immediately discovered the key. The wings of one of the keys were incomplete. Just as Harry was about to tell the two of them about her discovery, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in her ears. "Liwo." Roar. Accompanied by a huge roar, the next second a giant dragon formed by fierce fire smashed the wooden door into pieces. Harry, were you going to say something just now?" Ronald asked. "Ah, nothing, nothing, let's go." "Yes, Keep going. Harry quickly changed the subject. By the way, Thomas, you won't let it go away? Harry asked curiously, pointing at the giant dragon formed by fiend fire. No, it will be useful later. Although Ronald and Harley didn't understand what Thomas meant, they still nodded. After all, what Thomas said was correct. Chapter 50. As the three of them continued to go deeper, a huge chessboard suddenly appeared in front of them. There are many huge stone sculptures as high as 5 or 6 meters standing on it, holding swords and shields, standing opposite each other in black and white. It's wizard chess. Ronald said in surprise. He was extremely familiar with this thing. What does this mean? Harry frowned slightly, confused for a moment. Just as Ronald was about to explain and get involved, Thomas's voice rang out again. Ruined. Roar. The next second, a dull dragon roar was heard, and the dark green fire dragon formed by the calendar fire that had been quietly floating beside the three people took off into the air again and flew towards the chessboard. Its tail was like a steel whip, twitching rapidly and continuously, and bursts of cracking sounds continued to be heard. The autonomous defense function of the wizard chessboard was also activated at this moment, but unfortunately it had no effect on the fire dragon. After all, this fire dragon was not a living being, but an object condensed from flames, and was essentially just a flame. The sword penetrated the body of flames, and the next second it melted into iron liquid and dripped onto the chessboard. Roar! The fire dragon roared again, and dark green flames continued to spew out of its mouth. For a moment, the entire chessboard was covered by this powerful flame. In the sea of fire, blazing flames danced wildly, and the giant dragon transformed from fierce fire seemed to devour everything at this moment. After a while, the flames dissipated, and the stone sculptures on the wizard's chessboard had long disappeared, leaving only a mess. Ronald looked at this scene and swallowed unconsciously. He now seemed to understand what Harry meant. Thomas waved his wand, took back the fiend fire, turned to look at the two people beside him and spoke lightly. Do you choose to continue moving forward, or quit here? Of course we should continue. We have come this far and there is no reason to back down. Yeah, me too. Thomas looked at the excited Harley and Ronald, sighed helplessly, and could only nod and continue to stride forward. At the end of the road was an empty room with a huge mirror in the middle. The three of them recognized the identity of the mirror at the first sight. The mirror of Ariste, and on the other side of the mirror, Quirrell, wearing a scarf, was standing aside, looking at the three people with a smile on his face. It's you, Professor Quirrell. Ah, of course it's me, Harley. Quirrell, who was originally thinking about how to take out the Philosopher's Stone, couldn't help but smile when he saw the three people. They were just 3 first-year students, not worth mentioning at all. In his opinion, even if Thomas was able to fight 16 alone, no matter how powerful he was only at the student level. If it were him at that time, he could also easily defeat those 16 Slytherin senior students. Not to mention, he now has his respected master behind his head. Damn it, now things are getting troublesome. Ronald and Harry quickly took out their wands and prepared for battle. Although they knew Thomas was very strong, it would be difficult to say what would happen if they had to face the professor. Quirrell couldn't help but laugh when he saw this scene. Just as he was about to take out his wand to kill Thomas and Ronald and leave only Harry, Voldemort's voice suddenly rang out. Suddenly a hoarse voice sounded in everyone's ears. Take off the hood. Ah, yes, Master. Quirrell, who had just torn off his disguise and was so arrogant, was now as humble as an ant. With a flattering face, he slowly removed the gauze tied on his head. In the reflection of the mirror, a pale and terrifying face appeared in front of the three people. That is, what? Ronald stammered. Voldemort. Ah. What? How is that possible? Harry and Ronald showed disbelief on their faces after hearing Thomas's answer. They originally thought that their current enemy should be Quirrell in front of them, but they never expected to face the Dark Lord so directly. When Voldemort saw Harry and Ronald's surprised expressions, a disdainful smile appeared on his face. Then he looked at Thomas, who was standing between the two of them, and spoke. Thomas Blake, we meet again. To be honest, kid, you are very similar to me in the past. You are ambitious, talented, and eager for power and great strength. Join me, I can give you more powerful abilities and spells, and I can even give you the power to change life and death. As long as you nod your head now, these things and abilities that others would find difficult to obtain in their entire lives will be in your control. And you, Thomas Blake, will be second to none in above 10,000 people. Wizards are superior to humans, aren't they? What's more, we all have that ancient and pure bloodline. Our pure bloodline means we are destined to be above everything else. The Black family is always pure. Regulus once made the right choice, so I believe in you and you will not let me down. Really? I'm so sorry. Kukulkan. As Thomas finished speaking, a golden light emerged from his wrist and then floated in the air. The emerald green snake pupils suddenly burst into dazzling light. The well-informed Voldemort recognized Kukulkan's identity immediately and shouted. Damn it, close your eyes. Oh Lord! Before Quirrell could finish his words, his body quickly turned to stone. As for Harry and Ronald, they were knocked to the ground by Thomas at the very beginning. What happened? Ronald was about to raise his head, but Thomas quickly pressed his head down again. If you don't want to turn to stone, you'd better not raise your head. Harry, who was about to look up to see what was going on, quickly lowered her head. The next second, Thomas felt the coldness on his neck and knew that Quirrell was most likely hit. Thomas stood up slowly and looked up. Quirrell, who had been standing next to the magic mirror, had now turned into a stone sculpture with a terrified expression on his face. But the next second, Thomas's face turned cold. The petrified state only lasted for Quirrell's front side. Voldemort on the back of his head and even on the back side did not show any signs of being petrified. Damn it! I have to say, your basilisk is really good. Unfortunately, I also happen to have one. Voldemort's hoarse voice sounded slowly, with a hint of sarcasm in it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.